Hello there, and welcome to the Science for Sleep. Tonight we journey to some of the most extreme places on Earth, the extraordinary polar ice caps. In these frozen realms, mountains and oceans hide beneath miles of ice, and the air itself glows with green and violet auroras that dance silently across the sky. Here, the familiar rules of the world begin to bend. Time seems to move slower. Sound carries farther. And in the vast stillness, the planet reveals its oldest secrets, stories written in snowflakes, carved into glaciers, and sung by creatures that have never known the touch of warm air. The poles are more than just cold, they are memory, mystery, and motion, the living heartbeat of a planet in delicate balance. So before we begin, if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the wonders of our world, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, take a deep breath. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the hush of the polar winds carry you far away from the noise of the world. Tonight, we begin our gentle exploration of ice, time, and light. Antarctica holds nearly 2/3 of all Earth's fresh water, locked away in ice. At the bottom of the world lies a vast frozen reservoir, the Antarctic continent, cloaked beneath a thick blanket of ice several kilometers deep. Within that ice lies nearly 70% of the planet's freshwater, preserved across millions of years. Every snowflake that falls here becomes part of an ancient archive, pressed into the layers that form mountains of frozen time. If all that ice were to melt, the seas would rise by roughly 60 meters, swallowing coastlines and cities across the world. Yet most of this ice never melts. Instead, it moves, slowly and silently, flowing like a solid river toward the sea. Beneath its surface, hidden valleys and buried lakes have not seen sunlight for millions of years. Antarctica is not simply frozen, it is alive, breathing and shifting, holding the memory of every flake of snow that has ever fallen. In this stillness so deep that centuries pass like moments, the ice sheet records the story of Earth's water, climate, and change. The weight of the Antarctic ice sheet is so immense that it presses the very crust of the Earth downward. Spread across more than 13 million square kilometers, this colossal sheet of frozen mass is heavy enough to deform the planet itself, pushing the rocky crust beneath it hundreds of meters lower. The ground here is not unyielding. It bends and flexes, moving slowly under the pressure of the ice. When glaciers retreat or thin, the land begins to rise again, rebounding like a cushion released from centuries of strain. Scientists can measure this gentle rebound from space, watching the crust lift by millimeters each year as the ice above it changes. Even the seemingly solid Earth is flexible when viewed across planetary time. Antarctica is not a frozen still life, it is a dynamic, ever-moving system of gravity, pressure, and motion. It is like an immense hand pressing upon the world, shaping it as gently and persistently as tides shape the sea. Far to the north, Greenland's ice tells a similar story. Its surface gleams white and blue beneath the Arctic sun, a frozen ocean of time that holds enough water to reshape continents. In some places, its ice is more than 3 kilometers thick, deep enough to bury Mount Everest beneath it. Beneath this ancient sheet lies a hidden world of mountains, valleys, and buried riverbeds carved by long-vanished streams and sealed beneath the surface for millions of years. The pressure within the ice is immense. Near its base, it behaves almost like a thick fluid, moving outward at the speed of inches per year. Scientists drill deep into this frozen world, extracting cores that reveal thin layers of trapped air, tiny bubbles of ancient atmosphere that tell us how Earth's climate has changed through time. Though the Greenland ice sheet appears timeless, it is constantly moving, flowing, and reshaping the land below. It is both powerful and fragile, vast enough to raise oceans, yet vulnerable to the warmth of a changing sky. At the top of the East Antarctic Plateau lies the coldest place on Earth, a realm so inhospitable that even air itself seems to freeze. On clear, windless nights, beneath a sky scattered with diamonds, the temperature here can fall below -100 degrees Celsius. Colder than dry ice, colder than anywhere else known on the planet. In such extremes, metal becomes brittle, plastic shatters, and human breath crystallizes into tiny clouds of ice dust. Yet in this emptiness lies a profound serenity. The snow here has lain undisturbed for centuries, shaped only by the faint whisper of wind and the pale light of the moon. Satellite sensors have mapped these frozen hollows, pinpointing the planet's coldest temperatures and watching as the Earth's heat quietly radiates into space. To stand there, if one could endure it, would be to stand at the edge of habitability, in absolute silence, where the boundary between life and stillness becomes thin as frost. The Arctic, by contrast, breathes with the rhythm of the seasons. Each year, as sunlight fades and winter descends, the Arctic Ocean begins to freeze. Inch by inch, the ice expands outward until it covers millions of square kilometers, nearly doubling its size compared to summer. When the spring sun returns, the ice softens and breaks apart, forming a mosaic of drifting shards that sparkle under the light. This seasonal cycle, the great breathing of the Arctic, defines life across the region. Polar bears follow the ice edge in search of seals. Seals give birth upon its frozen platforms. Even microscopic algae bloom within the ice, forming the base of an entire web of life. When a glacier meets the sea, the edge begins to crack under pressure. Over years or decades, stress builds silently until the moment comes when a vast piece of ice breaks free, an iceberg, larger than entire cities. The sound of calving is like thunder, a deep groan echoing through the air. The newborn iceberg drifts out into the ocean, shimmering with shades of blue that seem to come from another world. Some are so large that they create their own weather systems, with fog forming above them and snow falling upon their peaks. Over time, waves sculpt their shapes, carving arches, tunnels, and spires of translucent ice. Eventually, they melt, returning their frozen memory to the sea. Each iceberg is temporary and eternal at once, a floating monument to cold, a reminder that even the largest and strongest things are only passing through. Some Antarctic icebergs drift for more than 20 years before they vanish. These are the tabular giants, massive slabs that break from the continent's ice shelves and begin their slow journey through the Southern Ocean. Caught in the grip of currents, they travel thousands of kilometers, moving through fog, sunlight, and storm. Satellites have followed their paths for decades, watching them shrink, fracture, and fade. Along their journey, they feed life. As they melt, they release nutrients into the sea, sparking blooms of plankton that draw whales, fish, and seabirds. When at last they disappear, they do so quietly, melting into the same water that once shaped them. Each iceberg is a traveler, carrying the memory of ancient snow into new waters, spreading fragments of frozen history across the world's oceans. They are the drifting ghosts of Antarctica, luminous, impermanent, and as graceful in their death as in their birth. Beneath the waves, the hidden sides of these icebergs reveal colors that feel otherworldly. Deep within the ice, under pressure so great that air bubbles are squeezed away, sunlight bends and scatters into dazzling shades of blue and green. Some ice glows like glass lit from within, others are veined with streaks of turquoise and jade. These colors shift as the ice melts, as if the bergs themselves are breathing light. Divers who have ventured beneath these floating giants describe an alien world of shimmering walls and quiet echoes, a place where time feels suspended, where everything moves with the slow rhythm of melting and freezing. In both poles, the beauty of ice hides immense power. These frozen regions help regulate Earth's temperature, reflecting sunlight back into space and driving ocean currents that shape global weather. The poles are like mirrors at the ends of the world, delicate, vital, and deeply connected to every living thing. When ice melts faster than it forms, the balance shifts. Sea levels rise, weather patterns change, and the oceans warm. Yet, in their stillness, the poles continue to remind us of the planet's resilience, that even after ages of transformation, life endures, adapts, and begins again. As night settles over these frozen lands, the auroras begin to awaken. Ribbons of green and violet light twist across the sky, shimmering like reflections of unseen oceans above. These lights are born from invisible storms far beyond the Earth, when charged particles from the sun strike our atmosphere and make the air itself glow. To watch them dance is to witness a conversation between our planet and the cosmos, silent, graceful, and eternal. Beneath them, the ice glows faintly, catching the light and scattering it like glass dust. The air grows still, and the sound of the world fades until only the whisper of the wind remains. So, as you drift deeper into rest, imagine yourself standing there, surrounded by endless white, beneath a sky of living color. The air is sharp but gentle, the snow beneath your feet ancient and soft. Every breath is a cloud, every heartbeat echoes faintly in the stillness. The ice beneath you holds the memory of time itself, of ages when the world was different, of storms that have come and gone, of lives that began and ended long before ours. You are standing upon history, yet it feels peaceful. The universe has slowed to a single, steady rhythm, the same rhythm that guides the tides, the seasons, and perhaps even your own dreams. And as you listen, to the low hum of wind, to the distant crack of ice, to the quiet pulse of the earth beneath, you might realize that the poles are not empty after all. They are full of memory and movement, sound and silence, endings and beginnings. The ice breathes. The world remembers. And somewhere in that vast stillness, you drift softly into sleep, carried gently by the frozen winds of the planet's quietest places. Beneath the surface of the sea, the hidden sides of icebergs glow with surreal shades of blue and green, their veins pulsing faintly with light as if the ice itself were alive. These colors are stories of origin, where pure blue ice forms from countless layers of compacted snow, pressed over centuries into crystal clarity, and the greener tones are born where seawater once froze into the glacier's base, merging the realms of ocean and sky. Divers who venture close to these ice giants often describe the sensation as floating inside a cathedral of crystal, where every wall hums with soft light, refracted and reflected through frozen glass. Sound moves strangely there. It doesn't echo so much as shimmer, as if the ice itself listens and answers. The iceberg, for all its vastness, becomes weightless in those depths, an ancient sculpture breathing slowly in a language of light and silence. It is one of nature's quietest miracles, sunlight, salt water, and ancient ice collaborating to paint the sea from beneath. Not all ice, however, is fleeting. Some of it endures the turning of years, the passing of seasons, growing stronger through time. This is the story of multi-year Arctic sea ice, ancient, resilient, and alive with memory. Not every sheet of sea ice melts each summer. Some survives the thaw year after year, pressing itself tighter, denser, and more enduring with each passing season. Over time, it becomes thick and rugged, often more than 5 meters deep, moving slowly across the Arctic Ocean like a frozen raft guided by wind and current. The surface of this ice is a landscape of ridges and hollows, rough and blue-white, carved by storms and softened by snow. Beneath it lies an unseen world, algae clinging to the underside, glowing faintly in the filtered light, feeding tiny crustaceans that drift like dust in the water. Those crustaceans, in turn, nourish fish, seals, and whales. The ice, seemingly lifeless from above, hides entire ecosystems within its heart. Scientists study this ancient ice as a record of persistence. It shows how long the Arctic has been breathing, freezing and melting, contracting and expanding, through centuries of change. Yet this story of endurance is now turning fragile. In a warming world, the strongholds of multi-year ice are shrinking, replaced by younger, thinner sheets that cannot remember the winters of the past. Each lost layer is a forgotten page in the planet's frozen diary. Far to the south, in the eternal cold of Antarctica, the ice holds not only water but air, tiny bubbles trapped for hundreds of thousands of years, preserving whispers from ancient skies. Each layer of snow begins as a faint breath of atmosphere, falling gently through the freezing air. As new snow accumulates above, the lower layers are compressed, sealing miniature pockets of air within. These bubbles are perfect time capsules, tiny spheres of ancient atmosphere untouched since the moment they were formed. When scientists drill deep into the ice and extract these cores, they are able to measure the exact composition of air from ages long before human history: carbon dioxide, methane, oxygen, even traces of volcanic gases. Each bubble tells of a world that once was, how warm periods came and went, how the climate danced delicately between extremes, and how life adapted in quiet rhythm. To hold such a fragment of air is to touch time itself, to breathe the same air that once drifted above forests now buried beneath ice, to hear the faint echo of a planet before memory. Inside every frozen bubble, the past still breathes softly. Deeper still, Antarctic ice cores stretch back nearly 800,000 years, an unbroken record of climate, chemistry, and cosmic connection. Scientists drilling into these frozen depths are, in essence, turning the pages of Earth's oldest diary. Each layer represents a year, a snowfall, a whisper from the sky that settled and stayed. Layer by layer, these cores reveal the rhythm of ice ages and thaws, of long quiet stabilities and sudden upheavals. By studying them, scientists can trace the rise and fall of greenhouse gases across millennia, following the pulse of the planet's breath through time. What emerges is a pattern, not of stillness, but of movement. The Earth has always changed, its temperature rising and falling with the tilt of its orbit and the rhythm of sunlight. In this frozen chemistry lies proof that climate is not a line but a heartbeat, alive with fluctuations, each one echoing through the ages. The deepest cores reveal even more extraordinary secrets. Within those ancient layers, scientists find traces of volcanic eruptions, thin, dark streaks of ash that mark moments when the planet roared, when fire from beneath met snow from above. Some of these ashes tell stories of eruptions powerful enough to darken skies and chill entire decades. Other layers contain something even rarer, microscopic grains of cosmic dust, remnants of meteor trails that once blazed across the night and drifted down through the atmosphere to rest forever in the snow. Within a single core, you might find the fingerprints of both volcanoes and stars, earthly fire and celestial light preserved side by side. By studying the chemical signals in these layers, scientists can tell when volcanoes erupted, when comets passed, even when solar storms touched our world. Each tiny speck of ash or stardust is a punctuation mark in Earth's long story, a reminder that even at the frozen ends of our planet, the universe is always touching down. But the story of ice is not just visual or volcanic, it is molecular. Hidden within each snowflake is a chemical fingerprint made of oxygen atoms. These atoms exist in slightly different forms, some lighter, some heavier, and the ratio between them changes with temperature. When snow falls, it locks those isotope ratios into place like a secret code. By analyzing them, scientists can reconstruct the temperature of Earth's past with astonishing precision. When they map those ratios through time, the data forms a great wave, the rise and fall of ice ages, the slow crescendos of glaciation followed by the swift warmth of melting epochs. These oxygen isotopes tell us that our world has always been in motion, shifting gently in tune with its orbit, its axis, and the faint variations in sunlight that reach its poles. Through this chemistry, we see not only what the world once was, but how responsive it has always been, a living system that listens, breathes, and remembers across ages. Even human history has left its fingerprints in the ice. In Greenland, deep within ancient layers, scientists have found traces of lead that drifted through the sky 2,000 years ago. This pollution did not come from modern industry, but from the smelting furnaces of the Roman Empire, fires used to melt or for coins and pipes. The smoke rose into the atmosphere, traveled across oceans, and settled gently over the Arctic. In those faint streaks of lead, scientists can read the story of Rome itself, its rise, its golden age, its decline. Periods of prosperity show thicker traces, times of war and plague, almost none. The ice remembers what stone walls and books could not. It holds a chemical echo of human ambition, proof that even in antiquity, our actions reached far beyond what we could see. The history of civilization is not only written in ruins, but in snow. And yet, the ice also carries quieter stories, of wind, pollen, and invisible journeys. Sometimes the wind carries the smallest travelers to the farthest corners of the world. Tiny grains of pollen released from distant forests and fields. Lifted by air currents, they drift high into the atmosphere and circle the globe before finally descending in snow at the poles. There they remain, perfectly preserved, each one a miniature fossil of life far away. Under a microscope, each grain reveals its origin, a pine from Siberia, a grass from North America, a flower that once bloomed 1,000 summers ago. By tracing where and when these travelers fell, scientists can reconstruct ancient wind patterns and ecosystems thousands of kilometers apart. It is proof that nothing on Earth is ever truly isolated. Even the coldest, most barren places carry the breath of distant green lands. The polar ice holds not only the story of cold, but the faint scent of summers far away, the whisper of warm winds frozen in place. And while much of the ice lies silent, the air above Antarctica is alive with motion. On the high plateau, where the air cools until it grows heavy as stone, gravity takes over and pulls it downward. This movement forms the katabatic winds, the most powerful, relentless winds on Earth. They pour down the slopes like invisible rivers, reaching speeds over 300 kilometers per hour, faster than a hurricane, sculpting the landscape with every breath. They carve the snow into sharp ridges called sastrugi, polish valleys until they gleam like glass, and sweep loose ice crystals across the plains in shimmering waves. Yet these winds are not merely chaos. They are the continent's breath, redistributing cold air from the heart of Antarctica to the edges of the sea. Their reach extends far beyond the pole, influencing weather systems and ocean currents half a world away. For the explorers who have faced them, these winds inspire both terror and awe, an invisible force of the planet itself, whispering in tones of ice and gravity. Standing against them feels like standing inside the Earth's heartbeat, raw and eternal. And so, the ice, whether glowing blue beneath the ocean or roaring white across the plains, remains one of our planet's most profound storytellers. It remembers what we forget, holds what we lose, and connects what seems separate. Every bubble, every grain, every storm preserved within it speaks of time's unbroken thread, from the birth of stars to the rise of empires, from the drifting of pollen to the fall of snow. In its silence lies the history of the world, waiting patiently beneath the aurora's glow. And as the winds continue their endless song across the frozen expanse, the earth listens, breathing slowly, dreaming in white, and reminding us that even the coldest places on the planet are full of life, movement, and memory, still whispering to anyone who will pause long enough to listen. In the stillness that follows a gale, when the furious winds of Antarctica finally grow quiet, the entire continent seems to exhale, releasing centuries in one soft, icy breath. The South Pole, though it appears as a vast ocean of snow stretching endlessly toward the horizon, is in truth one of the driest deserts on Earth, even more arid than the sands of the Sahara. The air is so cold that it holds almost no moisture, and what little precipitation falls does so as fine crystalline dust, mere centimeters a year. Because it never melts, this accumulation slowly builds layer upon layer, deceiving the eye into believing in abundance. Yet this frozen desert is built not by rain or river, but by patience and time, shaped by the faintest whispers of wind. The dryness preserves everything it touches. Wooden huts left by early explorers remain nearly unchanged, their tools still resting where human hands last placed them, and even footprints stamped decades ago can endure, unsoftened by time. Here, time itself seems stretched thin by silence and cold, moving slower than anywhere else on Earth, as if the landscape itself were holding its breath, listening to eternity. Across the Arctic Ocean, a very different story unfolds, where storms rise and clash upon a sea of ice that is never truly still. When fierce winds sweep across its frozen surface, the ocean transforms into a shifting mosaic of movement and sound. The ice groans, cracks, and collides, heaving upward into towering pressure ridges that can rise several stories high, their hidden keels plunging deep below the surface. Each ridge marks a frozen collision, two vast slabs of ice meeting in slow-motion embrace, pushed by forces of wind and current. Beneath these silent mountains of ice, life thrives in secret. Algae bloom in green shadows, small fish dart between frozen pillars, and seals find shelter from prowling predators. For explorers and scientists, these ridges are obstacles, challenges carved by nature's restless hand. Yet they are also monuments, sculptures of motion that capture the ceaseless tension between wind, water, and ice. When the storms finally pass, the ridges remain, gleaming in the weak Arctic sunlight like cathedrals of glass, testaments to the power of a frozen sea that never truly sleeps. Above both poles, the heavens come alive with one of nature's most breathtaking wonders, the aurora. At the edge of the world, night itself seems to awaken as ribbons of green, violet, and crimson light ripple across the sky, silent yet full of energy. Born from the restless power of the sun, these lights appear when charged solar particles stream along Earth's magnetic field and collide with atoms high in the atmosphere. In these collisions, the planet and the cosmos seem to converse, the sun speaking in radiant color while the Earth replies in shimmering glow. For ancient peoples, these auroras were messages from the gods, ghostly fires, or celestial battles painting the night. Modern science may call them geomagnetic storms, but that explanation does not strip away their mystery, it only deepens it. To stand beneath an aurora is to witness the dialogue between heaven and earth, a luminous reminder that even in the coldest, darkest corners of the world, beauty still burns bright. Under that shifting sky, the snow reflects the light in liquid silver, shadows vanish, and all distinctions between day and night dissolve. It is a place where silence becomes music and the universe breathes in color. When the sun finally sets over the poles, it does so for months. The polar night begins, an unbroken season of darkness where the stars reign supreme. For weeks upon weeks, the world turns blue and still, lit only by the ghostly aurora and the soft reflection of starlight on snow. The landscape becomes otherworldly, a dream suspended between ice and infinity. Animals adapt in their own quiet ways, some migrate toward the distant promise of sunlight, while others, foxes, seals, and polar bears, remain, guided not by sight but by instinct. For humans living under this endless twilight, time itself blurs. Without sunrise or sunset, the rhythm of days dissolves. Lamps replace daylight, and the boundaries between sleeping and waking grow uncertain. Yet there is peace in this darkness, a rare and deep stillness that invites reflection. The earth seems to pause, as if resting from its long journey around the sun. And when, after endless weeks, the first rays of dawn finally return, the light feels like a miracle, gentle, golden, and new. It is a rebirth that floods the land and soul alike, marking the quiet end of the long polar dream. But the cycle continues, and soon the world flips its rhythm once again. When the earth tilts just right, the poles enter another extreme, the season of the midnight sun. For months at a time, the sun refuses to set, circling the horizon in a slow, endless dance. The land glows in perpetual golden light, neither morning nor evening, but an eternal twilight that softens every shadow. The tundra awakens under this never-ending day. Birds nest without the guidance of darkness. Wildflowers bloom and fade in hurried succession. Rivers sparkle in restless motion as if trying to make up for all the time spent frozen. Humans who dwell beneath the midnight sun must learn to sleep by habit, not by light. Time feels suspended, days stretch on, filled with warmth and color, yet tinged with melancholy, for even this endless day must end. The light that seems so eternal carries within it the quiet reminder of coming night, the slow return to darkness. Still, for a time, the earth basks in the strange beauty of a sun that never sleeps, its glow wrapping the poles in a tender embrace. Within this realm of extremes, the cold reaches its purest, most unforgiving form. Deep in East Antarctica, on a windswept plateau scoured by centuries of storms, instruments once recorded the coldest temperature ever measured on Earth, nearly -98 degrees Celsius. At that point, air itself begins to crystallize, and even carbon dioxide can freeze. The very sound of movement slows in such dense, brittle cold. Human breath turns instantly to powder, metal snaps like glass, and machinery becomes sluggish under the immense, invisible weight of frozen air. To be there is to feel the presence of the planet's rawest power, cold not merely as absence of heat, but as a living force. Yet even in that near-absolute silence, life endures in miraculous forms. Tiny bacteria nestle in rock pores, and microscopic algae lie dormant beneath layers of snow, waiting for a whisper of warmth. Scientists who work in this hostile environment describe the experience as humbling, a confrontation with the limits of what life can endure, and a reminder that the fragile warmth sustaining us exists within a thin, precious range between fire and void. Life in the polar regions adapts to these extremes with stories of resilience that defy imagination. Among the most remarkable are the emperor penguins of Antarctica, the only penguins that breed through the bitter polar winter. When the sun disappears and the world turns to darkness, thousands of these birds gather upon the frozen sea, where each female lays a single egg before journeying back to the ocean to feed. The males remain behind, balancing their eggs delicately on their feet, tucked beneath folds of skin for warmth. For nearly 2 months, they endure blizzards and brutal winds, fasting the entire time, standing shoulder to shoulder in immense huddles to share what little warmth exists. When the first chicks finally hatch, their soft cries echo across the ice, fragile sparks of life in a world of endless cold. As the light returns, the females come back with food, and the colony erupts into motion and song once more. The emperor penguin's devotion is one of the purest symbols of endurance and care, a love story written in frost and wind, proving that even in the harshest places on Earth, life chooses to nurture and persist. Far to the north, the polar bear reigns as the Arctic's silent hunter. Though many think of it as a land creature, it is truly a marine mammal, born of the ocean and bound to the shifting sea ice. Its fur, thick and hollow, traps heat so efficiently that even thermal cameras sometimes fail to detect it. Beneath that fur lies black skin that absorbs sunlight, and a thick layer of fat that insulates it against the numbing chill of Arctic waters. The polar bear swims vast distances between ice floes, sometimes for days without rest, gliding through a world that is constantly changing. On the ice, it waits silently near the breathing holes of seals, relying on patience more than strength, a living embodiment of endurance. The sea ice is its home, its hunting ground, and its lifeline. But as the climate warms and the ice retreats, these great bears are forced to swim farther and search longer for food, their world slowly slipping away beneath them. Even so, they remain powerful symbols of survival, bridges between elements of air, water, and snow, creatures that embody both majesty and melancholy in a world transforming too quickly. Among the creatures who master the art of adaptation, few do so as elegantly as the Arctic fox. In summer, its fur turns brown and gray, blending perfectly with the stony tundra and patches of moss. As winter approaches, the coat transforms to pure white, vanishing into the snowdrifts and reflecting the faint light of the low sun. This transformation is not merely camouflage, it is poetry written in biology, a seasonal rhythm that connects the animal to its world. Agile, intelligent, and endlessly resourceful, the Arctic fox hunts lemmings, scavenges leftovers from polar bear kills, and even caches food beneath the snow for times of scarcity. In the long polar night, its white form moves silently across the frozen plains, a ghost of survival guided by instinct and moonlight. Its tracks, faint and temporary, remind us of the quiet balance between fragility and resilience that defines life at the edge of the world. To stand at the poles, whether amid Antarctica's endless silence or the Arctic's restless ice, is to witness a stripped bear, showing its soul in shades of white and blue. These are places where extremes become truth, where survival depends on patience, and where every gust of wind and flake of snow carries a memory of deep time. They are laboratories of endurance, sanctuaries of silence, and mirrors reflecting both the beauty and fragility of our planet. The poles remind us that Earth is not static, it breathes, shifts, freezes, and thaws in a rhythm older than humanity. Every iceberg that drifts to sea, every aurora that lights the sky, and every penguin that huddles against the storm tells a single, continuous story, that even in the harshest conditions, life persists, and beauty finds a way to endure. As the long winter deepens across the endless white expanse, the Arctic fox begins its quiet transformation, its fur thickening and brightening until it turns snow white, blending almost invisibly with the drifting powder that carpets the land. This change is not just beauty, it is survival itself, a silent armor against the eyes of both predator and prey. Beneath the soft crust of snow, it hears the faintest whispers of life, the delicate rustle of lemmings hidden in tunnels below. In a flash, the fox dives headfirst into the snow, a perfect arc of instinct and precision, emerging with its meal clutched in jaws built by evolution for this frozen world. Every part of its body seems sculpted by the cold, even the soles of its paws are covered in fur, offering both warmth and traction on ice. When prey is scarce, the fox becomes a clever scavenger, following polar bears to feed on scraps or burying leftovers beneath the snow, trusting memory and patience to see it through the leanest days. Months of darkness pass, and still, the fox remains graceful, its shimmering coat glinting like frost beneath the faint glow of the aurora. It moves with purpose, never hurried, perfectly attuned to the rhythm of change, a living emblem of Arctic resilience and adaptation. In this land where survival depends on transformation, even the smallest forms of life harbor astonishing endurance. Tiny rotifers and nematodes, creatures smaller than a pinhead, rest deep within the permafrost, locked in time. For decades, sometimes centuries, they lie frozen in stillness, their delicate cells drained of water, their metabolisms reduced to near zero in a suspended state called cryptobiosis. To the eye, they are lifeless specks of dust, but within them, the spark of life waits patiently. When warmth and moisture finally return, they awaken as if no time had passed at all, feeding, moving, reproducing, resuming a story paused across millennia. Some have been revived from Siberian ice tens of thousands of years old, stirring once more after epochs of silence. Their quiet persistence reminds us that survival isn't always a matter of strength or speed. Sometimes it is the art of waiting, of becoming almost nothing until the world grows kind again. Far to the south, beneath the black waters of Antarctica, another marvel glides through the cold, a creature with blood as clear as glass. The Antarctic icefish drifts ghost-like through the icy abyss, a vertebrate unlike any other. It has evolved without hemoglobin, the red pigment that carries oxygen in most living things. Its blood, nearly transparent, moves oxygen directly through its plasma, aided by the cold, oxygen-rich sea. Its heart, immense and tireless, beats slowly, its metabolism deliberate, conserving energy in the endless chill. Its skin is so thin that oxygen seeps through it straight from the water. Inside its body, antifreeze proteins flow like invisible guardians, keeping ice crystals from forming within its veins. Under the beam of a submersible light, this fish appears as something between dream and ghost, translucent, drifting, serene. It is the embodiment of stillness, a masterpiece of adaptation, proof that life can flourish in even the harshest, darkest corners of existence. Not far from where the icefish drifts, another wonder rests unmoving on the ocean floor, sponges, ancient and silent, that may live for thousands of years. In these shadow depths, where the temperature barely rises above freezing and the current moves with the patience of centuries, time itself seems to slow. Anchored to rocks beneath the Antarctic ice, these sponges grow at a pace so gradual that a millennium may pass between noticeable changes. Some have been dated at over 10,000 years old, older than civilization itself, older than the pyramids, older than our concept of history. Each cell of their bodies quietly filters the surrounding water, absorbing tiny traces of the world around them, recording centuries of oceanic change. Though they appear still and unremarkable, they are living monuments of endurance, proof that longevity belongs not to the swift, but to the serene, those who find harmony in time's slow current rather than struggling against it. In this realm of frozen stillness, patience is power, and silence is strength. Above them, sleek and silver-gray, the Weddell seal moves through the icy water with the calm mastery of a creature perfectly at home in the cold. When it dives, it sinks gracefully into the depths, sometimes more than 600 meters down, staying submerged for over an hour without need of air. Its blood carries extraordinary stores of oxygen, and its muscles hold even more, releasing it slowly as the seal glides through the shadowy blue. Its heart slows to a gentle beat, conserving energy as it searches for fish in the dim, cathedral-like quiet beneath the ice. The holes it breathes through on the surface can refreeze in minutes, so it keeps them open with its teeth, patiently gnawing the edges to survive. Down below, surrounded by a world of slow-moving bubbles and wavering light, it moves in a ballet of tranquility, embodying the perfect balance between grace and endurance. In a place that could end most lives within moments, the Weddell seal thrives, proof that peace and power can coexist in one elegant form. Nearby, in the Arctic seas where the ice is ever shifting, another legend swims, the narwhal, often called the unicorn of the sea. Sleek and mysterious, it moves silently through the freezing waters, its long, spiraled tusk extending from its head like a living lance of ivory. This tusk, which can reach 3 meters in length, is no weapon of war but a marvel of sensitivity, containing millions of nerve endings capable of detecting the slightest changes in temperature, pressure, and salinity. Through it, the narwhal reads the ocean like a book written in whispers, sensing invisible currents and subtle shifts that guide its migration. Sometimes, males cross tusks in slow, ritualistic dances beneath the waves, not to harm, but to communicate, to test, to bond. Watching them is to glimpse a creature that once lived in myth, a being so strange that early explorers thought it proof of fairy tales. Yet, here it is, perfectly real and perfectly adapted to its world of shifting ice and deep fjords. The narwhal's tusk tells a story older than legend, spiraling upward as if reaching for the light, a symbol of the mysteries that still lie hidden in the sea. In the colder, darker reaches of the North Atlantic, another ancient wanderer moves with dreamlike slowness, the Greenland shark. Inhabiting waters where the sun rarely reaches, it drifts through the depths with an almost ghostly calm. It grows no more than a few centimeters a year, a pace so slow that it lives not just decades but centuries. By studying the chemistry within their eyes, formed before birth and never replaced, scientists have discovered sharks that may be over 400 years old, meaning some individuals began their lives long before telescopes scanned the sky, before nations were formed, before much of the modern world even existed. These sharks are true elders of the ocean, silent witnesses to centuries of change. Their slow motion is not weakness but wisdom. In the frigid darkness, slowness becomes survival, and patience becomes immortality. They glide gently through the black waters, feeding on fish, seals, and the occasional drifting carcass of a whale, moving with a rhythm as old as the ice itself. The Greenland shark reminds us that longevity is not about endurance alone. It is about harmony, the art of existing quietly, letting time flow around you like water. High above these deep dwellers, in the cold Antarctic winds, the snow petrel takes flight. Pure white and sharp-winged, it seems like a living snowflake carried by the breeze. For most of its life, it schemes across the frozen sea, feeding on fish and krill in the shimmering light that bounces off the water's mirror-like surface. But when the time comes to breed, these ethereal birds journey inland, sometimes hundreds of kilometers from the coast, to find bare cliffs of rock where no snow can cling. There, against the roaring wind and endless white, they carve out a fragile refuge, nesting above a world of emptiness. Each pair lays just one egg, guarding it fiercely from predators and the deadly cold. To reach these nests, the parents must navigate blizzards and storm winds, guided only by instinct and the memory of ancient routes. When the chicks hatch, they open their eyes to a world nearly devoid of life, their cries echoing against the frozen cliffs. The snow petrel's life is a breathtaking balance between fragility and endurance, a bridge between sea and sky, between motion and stillness. And beneath that same frozen world, under ice shelves thicker than skyscrapers are tall, entire ecosystems thrive unseen. Here, beneath hundreds of meters of ancient ice, where sunlight has not reached for thousands of years, scientists have discovered sponges, worms, and strange unclassified creatures clinging to the seafloor. They live in total darkness, feeding on the faint trickle of nutrients carried by deep undercurrents, or drifting down from the ice above. Some of these beings are so unique they may represent entirely new branches of life, organisms that have evolved in complete isolation, untouched by the chaos of the surface world. In their silent realm, time moves differently. Millennia pass unnoticed as they persist, adapting, enduring, proving that life does not depend on sunlight. It only needs energy, stability, and the unyielding will to exist. Beneath Antarctica's frozen roof, where everything seems eternal and unmoving, there beats the quiet pulse of existence, ancient and unbroken. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson whispered by the ice, the ocean, and the creatures that call them home, that life, in all its forms, finds a way to endure. Whether through transformation, stillness, patience, or adaptation, existence bends but does not break. The Arctic fox waits beneath the snow for the sound of prey. The nematode slumbers for centuries awaiting warmth. The ice fish drifts translucent in the dark. The ancient sponge measures time in millennia. The seal glides beneath the frozen roof of the sea. The narwhal listens through its ivory spiral. The Greenland shark moves slowly through the centuries. The snow petrel defies the wind to raise a single fragile chick. And the creatures below the ice wait in their own timeless darkness. Together they form a symphony of endurance, a quiet, eternal song of survival, echoing through the coldest places on Earth, where the beauty of life is not in how loudly it thrives, but in how gently it endures. Even as the bones of vanished giants rest beneath the polar stone, the story of life in these frozen realms continues to unfold, whispered through the quiet breathing of ice and the subtle pulse of oceans beneath it, a rhythm so slow that centuries pass like heartbeats, and yet within that stillness, Earth's vitality hums on, connecting the Arctic and Antarctic in a mirror of balance and reflection, two ends of the planet bound by cold, light, and time. In the far north, where the tundra stretches in endless pale horizons, the Arctic fox moves like a wisp of living snow, its fur thick and luminous, changing with the seasons from brown to pure white, an echo of the land's own transformation. It listens beneath the silence, hearing the faint rustle of prey tunneling under frost, and when it leaps, it arcs through the frozen air like a thought, quick, precise, alive. Nearby, polar bears wander the shifting maze of sea ice, their heavy paws pressing gently over the brittle crust of the ocean's frozen skin. They are solitary monarchs of a vanishing kingdom, walking between worlds of solid and liquid, land and sea, forever chasing the scent of seals through wind that carries the taste of salt and snow. Each step they take is an act of endurance, for the ice beneath them grows thinner each year, fracturing into blue pools that reflect the long, low light of a sun that never truly sets in summer, and never fully rises in winter. Beneath that ice, the Arctic Ocean stirs with life unseen, tiny plankton glowing softly in the twilight water, jellyfish drifting like translucent galaxies, and narwhals tracing ancient routes through the cold, their spiral tusks glittering like frozen beams of moonlight. The narwhals call echoes through the deep, mingling with the songs of bowhead whales, whose voices are so low and haunting they seem to belong to the earth itself, vibrating through layers of ice and salt and memory. Above, the sky ripples with auroras, curtains of green and violet light flowing silently across the stars, born from invisible streams of solar wind colliding with the atmosphere at the edge of space. To watch them is to feel the planet breathe, magnetic energy painting the heavens in colors too vast for words, a living bridge between Earth and the sun, glowing over both poles as if uniting them in a shared dream. In Antarctica, those same lights shimmer across glaciers that rise like frozen cathedrals, their walls catching the faintest hues of blue, deeper than any sky, carved by wind and time into vast, sculpted silence. Emperor penguins huddle together against the bitter wind, their feathers overlapping like armor, protecting the warmth of their young within a circle of unbroken care. When the storm passes, they march across the ice in lines that seem drawn by patience itself, their small steps echoing across a landscape where sound barely exists. Weddell seals rest nearby, their sleek bodies glinting under the weak sun, exhaling plumes of mist that twist and vanish into the air. Beneath them, the under-ice world glows softly, illuminated by shafts of filtered light where fish shimmer like silver dust and jelly creatures bloom in the stillness. Each form of life here, whether fox or seal, whale or microbe, exists at the edge of endurance, proving that survival is not merely persistence but adaptation, a conversation between life and the conditions that try to erase it. Back in the Arctic, the thaw comes slowly, like a memory returning. Rivers awaken from their frozen sleep, cracking the silence with sudden laughter as meltwater carves new paths through the tundra. Moss and lichens drink the light greedily, painting the land with muted greens and ochres. Caribou begin their long migration, moving in shimmering herds across the plains, their hooves clicking over rock and permafrost, leaving faint tracks that vanish with the next wind. Above them, snowy owls perch silently on ridges, their yellow eyes bright against the pale horizon, each blink reflecting centuries of instinct. In the shallows of the polar sea, walruses gather on ice floes, their vast bodies pressing together for warmth. Their calls echo across the bay, deep, resonant, and strangely tender, the language of a species that has known the rhythm of ice since before memory. The air smells faintly of salt and life, of transformation. Every melt and freeze, every storm and calm, is part of the grand respiration of the poles, a pulse that connects every organism from microbe to mammal, from ice crystal to aurora. Far beneath the Antarctic ice, unseen worlds continue their quiet existence. Microbial colonies cling to mineral walls and liquid darkness, sustained by geothermal energy and chemical whispers. These ancient organisms are time travelers, their lives measured not in days or seasons but in geological patience, their endurance a message sent through time to us, that life is not fragile, only hidden. When scientists lower cameras into these subglacial lakes, they find not emptiness but subtle movement, the slow drift of organisms that feed without sunlight, creatures whose existence rewrites our understanding of what life can be. In a sense, these buried ecosystems are like the polar regions themselves, silent on the surface, but alive with depth and unseen motion. And above them, the great ice shelves groan and shift, releasing thunderous echoes that roll for miles, the voice of ice speaking in the only language it knows. Icebergs break away like pages torn from the story of the earth, drifting north into warmer waters where they melt slowly, returning their ancient fresh water to the sea. Each one carries air bubbles trapped millions of years ago, small capsules of ancient atmosphere, silent witnesses to climates long gone. When they dissolve, they whisper those histories back into the ocean, blending past and present in the endless circulation of the planet's breath. Meanwhile, in the far north, the polar night deepens. The sun slips below the horizon for months, leaving the land bathed in blue darkness. The aurora becomes the only daylight, rippling like thought across the sky. And yet, even in this eternal night, the Arctic is not asleep. Beneath the frozen sea, the world glows. Bioluminescent plankton shimmer as they are stirred by the slow passage of whales. A polar bear stands at the edge of a pressure ridge, nose lifted to the wind, scenting the hidden world below. It dives suddenly, breaking through thin ice to snatch a seal that had come up for air. Life and death here are intertwined like the currents beneath the ice, one endless flow. Across the globe, at the opposite pole, the Antarctic summer begins its brief and brilliant awakening. The sun circles endlessly above the horizon, never setting, casting golden light across the glaciers. Meltwater streams form on the surface, snaking through ice valleys that gleam like glass. Petrels and skuas wheel through the air, their cries the only sound in a land too vast for echoes. The southern ocean churns with feeding life, krill rising to the surface in dense clouds, drawing whales from across the world. Humpbacks breach, their massive forms arching through cold sunlight before crashing back into spray that catches the light like shattered jewels. Every summer, this explosion of life repeats, then fades again into winter's stillness, a perfect rhythm of abundance and withdrawal that defines the poles like a heartbeat defines a life. As the seasons turn, scientists move carefully across these realms, their instruments recording the smallest changes in temperature, light, and ice. They are listeners to the Earth's slow language, translators of its frozen poetry. In the microscopic shimmer of algae beneath ice, in the migration of whales, in the deep hum of the magnetosphere that paints auroras across the sky, they hear the same message, that everything here is connected. The Arctic and Antarctic are not opposites but reflections, two mirrors at either end of the planet, capturing and returning light to one another. When the aurora dances in the north, its twin shimmers in the south, unseen but equally real, like a heartbeat echoing between hemispheres. And yet, this balance trembles. The ice melts faster now. Glaciers retreat, revealing bones of rock that haven't seen daylight for millennia. The polar bear's paths grow longer. Penguins must travel farther to find food. But even as the world changes, there is resilience woven into the very DNA of these places. The Arctic fox will still listen for the faintest sound beneath the snow. The algae will still bloom in brine channels invisible to the human eye. Whales will still sing beneath the ice, their voices threading through the water like stories carried by the tides. Life here has survived every cycle of ice and thaw, of darkness and light. It will continue, reshaping itself as it always has, following the rhythm of the Earth's slow turning. If you stand in the polar silence, truly still, where the only sound is your own breath freezing in the air, you might feel that quiet pulse beneath your feet, the same one that began in the earliest days of the planet, when the seas were young and the sky still learning to hold light. It hums through microbes in ancient lakes, through the veins of algae inside sea ice, through the hearts of whales, and through the auroras that whisper across the upper atmosphere. It is the pulse of life, fragile yet unbroken, stretching from pole to pole, from darkness into light. The world's coldest edges are not dead ends but beginnings, places where creation never stopped, only slowed, where life continues to write its own story in frost and fire. The poles are the Earth's memory and its mirror, the first places to change and the last to forget. Beneath their silence, our planet still dreams, of warmth, of movement, of light, and in that dream, all of life listens, waiting, as the ice breathes and the auroras dance their endless, luminous song. Discoveries reveal that the polar regions were not always cold. Long before the ice arrived, these lands lay under skies of pale gold, where gentle summers stretched for months and green valleys reached toward a quiet horizon. Great forests once swayed where glaciers now sleep. Rivers ran freely, carving paths through soft earth instead of frozen stone, and the air carried the scent of moss and distant rain. The world was slower then, its seasons wide and forgiving. Creatures wandered through open meadows that basked beneath a midnight sun. But the earth was changing, always moving, always breathing. Over ages so long that no human mind can truly count them, the continents drifted, mountains rose, and ocean currents turned like slow thoughts of the planet itself. Bit by bit, warmth faded, and winter began its long approach. The same places that once bloomed with color grew pale, and the air that once hummed with life fell quiet. Time, more than ice, became the true sculptor of the earth. Every layer of frozen ground now holds the memory of those vanished summers, the bones of animals, the shadows of roots, the faint signature of rain that fell 100 million years ago. Beneath the surface, fossils sleep like stories waiting to be read, telling us that nothing, not even the coldest landscape, was always as it seems. Far to the south, the great white crown of Antarctica hides secrets of its own. Beneath its frozen shell, there are lakes and rivers, still flowing, still alive. Though the surface is locked in silence, the world underneath hums softly with motion. Heat from the Earth's heart rises through the rock, and the pressure of the ice itself keeps the water from freezing. Hidden channels carry meltwater from one basin to another, weaving an invisible map beneath the snow. Scientists, using the eyes of satellites and the touch of radar, have traced these ghostly waterways stretching for hundreds of kilometers, linking valleys no sunlight has ever touched. Some of these rivers find their way toward the sea, carrying with them minerals and nutrients that may feed tiny forms of life, unseen creatures that live without sunlight, drawing energy from the warmth of the earth itself. The discovery of these secret rivers changed how we see the poles. They are not still and lifeless, but breathing systems, moving slowly in rhythms too vast for us to feel. Beneath even the quietest ice, the planet's pulse continues, patient, steady, unstoppable. And then, far to the north, another hidden wonder lies sleeping under Greenland's icy heart. Deep below the frozen crust is a canyon greater than the Grand Canyon itself, a vast and winding scar carved by ancient rivers millions of years before the first glacier ever formed. It runs for more than 700 kilometers, twisting and turning beneath the ice like the outline of a forgotten dream. Though it has been sealed away for ages, scientists believe that water still flows through its depths, whispering along its unseen walls, reminding us that even under mountains of frozen time, the memory of movement endures. The canyon is a secret riverbed of history, a trace of warmth locked beneath the cold, proof that the earth is always more alive than it appears. The ice may seem eternal, but beneath it the old world still stirs, valleys, ridges, and buried lakes that remember a time when sunlight lingered longer on the northern horizon. Across the endless white plains of Antarctica, another mystery glints in the light, black stones scattered on a field of snow. These are visitors from far beyond our planet, meteorites, preserved perfectly by the frozen desert. In this land of silence, nothing rusts, nothing rots, and nothing hides. The dark stones gleam like tiny worlds against the pale ice, each one a messenger from space. Some traveled across the galaxy for billions of years before landing here, carried by chance, frozen in time. Glaciers move slowly, sweeping these cosmic fragments into natural gathering places called meteorite stranding surfaces. For scientists who wander these lonely expanses, every small rock could be a story, a piece of another world, a clue to the beginning of ours. In this way, Antarctica becomes a museum without walls, a place where the universe quietly leaves its gifts. Each meteorite holds traces of ancient stars, of the dust that once drifted in the newborn solar system, long before the Earth had oceans or air. To walk among them is to touch the deep past, to hold in one's hand the memory of creation itself. And as the wind whispers over the ice, it feels almost as if the planet is listening too. Even the winds of the poles carry hidden connections. Every year, fierce gusts rise across the frozen lands, lifting fine dust from exposed rock and scattering it high into the atmosphere. This dust may seem lifeless, but it is rich in iron, one of the building blocks of life in the sea. When these particles drift across the world and finally settle on the surface of distant oceans, they act like a kind of quiet nourishment. They spark blooms of tiny plants called phytoplankton, the first link in the great chain of life that feeds fish, whales, and all the living motion of the water. From ice to sea, from silence to abundance, the planet shares its gifts in cycles too vast for us to see, yet so precise that every breath we take is somehow tied to them. The poles, though remote and barren, are part of the same living rhythm that runs through all things. Even in stillness they give. Even in silence they sustain. The dust of stone becomes the food of oceans, and the circle of life continues, unseen, but unbroken. And as time moves on, humans too found their way into this world of frost and wonder. The first to stand at the very bottom of the earth came not with machines or comfort, but with courage. In the summer of 1911, after months of bitter wind and endless white, the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen and his small team reached the South Pole. They planted their flag in a place no one had ever seen, a flat, frozen desert where the sun circled endlessly above but never truly warmed the air. Just weeks later, the British expedition led by Robert Falcon Scott arrived as well, only to meet tragedy on their return. Their journey remains one of the most moving stories in all of exploration, a triumph of spirit shadowed by the cruel honesty of nature. Their diaries speak of blinding snow, of light that never fades, of silence so deep it felt alive. Today, their camp still rests beneath the ice, preserved as if the world itself wanted to remember their bravery. The South Pole stands as both a symbol of human achievement and a quiet warning that wonder often walks beside humility, and the farther we go into the unknown, the more we realize how small we truly are. Yet long before the flags and ships, long before maps named the corners of the world, there were people who already knew how to live with the cold. Across the Arctic's sweeping plains and frozen seas, the Inuit found a way to make harmony with what others might call hardship. For thousands of years they have lived among the ice, reading its signs like an open book. They know the voice of snow underfoot, the color that tells when ice is strong and when it hides danger, the quiet groan of water moving far below. They understand that the land and sea are not separate but joined in a circle of giving. Their homes, made from snow and stone, stand as symbols of patience and skill. Every tool, every line of a song, carries knowledge shaped by generations who watched the stars and followed the winds. The Inuit see the world not as something to conquer, but to share with, a living companion that listens and provides when treated with respect. In the long nights, when the sky fills with shimmering curtains of green and violet light, they tell stories of the spirits who dance above, believing that the aurora itself is alive, laughing and playing across the heavens. Their wisdom whispers through the ages, that life, even in the harshest places, is possible through understanding, not dominance. And as centuries passed, other travelers ventured north across dark seas, drawn by curiosity and the glimmer of distant lands. The Vikings, with their carved wooden ships and fearless hearts, sailed through icy waters long before most of the world knew what lay beyond the horizon. Around the year 1000, a sailor named Leif Erikson set out from Greenland, following the call of the wind and the sun's low path, until he reached a new shore they called Vinland. His voyage, carried out with only memory and instinct as guides, proved that even in an age of simple tools, the human desire to explore is boundless. The Vikings built small settlements on these cold edges of the world, trading and exploring, leaving behind fragments of iron, wood, and story. Archaeologists today still uncover the traces of their bravery, the remains of longhouses, the marks of fires that once burned against the northern chill. Their journeys remind us that discovery is not only about reaching new places but also about listening to the song of the unknown, letting it pull us forward even when the way ahead is hidden by mist and ice. In later centuries, as exploration grew bolder, the price of curiosity became clearer. Sailors pushed their ships into frozen seas, chasing dreams of passage and glory, only to face hunger, frostbite, and the endless white silence that swallowed sound and time. They sailed through darkness that lasted for months, through storms that could crush a ship like glass. Many never returned. Their journals tell of the slow onset of scurvy, the bitter cold that turned breath to crystals, and the loneliness that filled the long, empty nights. Yet even in suffering, they wrote of beauty, of skies that shimmered with strange light, of icebergs glowing like glass cathedrals, of the quiet dignity of the polar world. These were not just tales of endurance. They were confessions of wonder. To face the poles was to meet something greater than courage. It was to stand before the vastness of the earth and feel both awe and humility. And still, life goes on in these extremes. The Arctic and Antarctic may seem empty, but they are full of movement and connection. Beneath the ice, tiny creatures drift in the water, glowing faintly in the dark. Seals slide gracefully through cracks in the frozen sea, surfacing to breathe through holes they keep open with tooth and whisker. Polar bears wander along the edges of the ice floes, their fur glowing faintly gold in the pale sunlight. Each step they take is a quiet miracle of adaptation, paws wide as snowshoes, noses keen enough to scent a seal through meters of ice. They are symbols of solitude, yet they belong utterly to this place, bound to its rhythm of freeze and thaw, of hunger and plenty. And under the southern stars, in the waters that circle Antarctica, another kind of life sings. Whales rise through the cold blue to breathe, their calls traveling farther than any sound made by humankind. Penguins gather on the shores, huddled close against the wind, their dark backs shining like ink against the snow. They march and dive and return again, trusting in the cycle that has guided them for ages. At times, the auroras shimmer above both poles, two great mirrors reflecting one another across the world's curve. The same solar winds that brush the north with green fire also paint the south with waves of rose and violet. It is as if the earth itself is dreaming, one dream seen from two ends of the same soul. The light flickers, dances, and fades, and the snow below catches its color like a whisper of heaven touching the ground. No human creation can match the quiet grandeur of this sight. It is beauty born of invisible forces, of particles traveling from the heart of the sun, meeting our sky in a silent conversation of energy and grace. Those who have seen it describe a feeling beyond words, a reminder that even in the darkest night, there is motion, there is meaning, there is light. And so the story of the poles is not one of emptiness, but of balance. Beneath the ice, water flows. Above the snow, light dances. Across the sky, wind carries dust that feeds the seas. Every glacier, every frozen river, every silent stone plays a part in the endless breathing of the planet. From the first forests that grew under ancient suns to the explorers who faced the storm, from the Inuit hunters reading the ice to the scientists listening for echoes beneath it, all are connected in one long chain of curiosity and care. The polar regions are not the end of the Earth. They are its deep heart, beating slowly, reminding us that even stillness can be alive, even silence can speak. The world turns, the ice melts and reforms, and the same cycles continue as they always have. Perhaps one day, long after us, new explorers will walk these lands again, and find in the ice the traces of our time, our footsteps, our machines, our dreams frozen in a layer of history. They will study us as we study the past, and they too will wonder at how brief every era truly is. For now, the poles remain what they have always been, keepers of time, guardians of mystery, and mirrors for the human spirit. As the wind drifts softly across their surface, as the light fades and returns, they whisper one truth again and again, that nothing is truly still, that even in the quietest places, life endures, and that the earth, in all its wonder, is forever alive. Discoveries reveal that the polar regions were not always cold, that long before the endless nights and glistening frost, these faraway lands knew warmth, forests, and flowing rivers. But time and the slow breath of earth turned the world, shifting climates, sculpting continents, and bringing the age of ice. When the first explorers set their eyes upon the poles, they found not only cold, but an otherworldly beauty, a landscape of shining mirrors where the sky touched the frozen sea. They arrived with dreams of glory and discovery, carrying the weight of nations and the quiet hope of seeing what no one had seen before. Yet they also carried preserved foods, salted meat, and cans of biscuits, unaware that the lack of fresh fruit and vegetables would soon bring scurvy, a slow, invisible thief that turned muscles weak and gums to dust. Frostbite crept in with the wind, claiming fingers and toes, while hunger waited just beyond the next horizon. Sled dogs fell on the ice, supplies froze solid, and still they pressed on, drawn by a force they couldn't explain, a need to chart what lay beyond the edge of the known world. Their journals spoke of pain and beauty intertwined, of auroras above and hunger below, of a silence so deep it could unmake a man. The poles demanded everything and gave nothing freely, but in return, they offered glimpses of eternity painted in light and endurance. Among these stories, none shone brighter than that of Ernest Shackleton and his ship, the Endurance. In 1914, Shackleton set sail with a crew of dreamers and sailors, hearts full of courage and eyes set on the impossible, to cross Antarctica from sea to sea. But the sea had other plans. The Endurance became trapped in a tightening field of pack ice, its wooden hull groaning under the pressure. For months, the men drifted helplessly, their ship creaking like a living thing caught in the hands of the frozen ocean. They watched as the ice crushed it piece by piece, until finally, it disappeared beneath the white. Stranded hundreds of miles from land, Shackleton and his men camped on drifting floes, surviving on penguins and seals, their fires dim against the endless blue. Yet even when all seemed lost, they refused to surrender. Shackleton led a handful of men across one of the most dangerous seas on Earth, in a small open boat, through storms that could have swallowed them whole. And against every odd, he returned with help. Not a single man from his crew was lost. The Endurance became more than a ship, it became a symbol, proof that courage and hope can outlast even the Antarctic winter. Along the icy coastlines, the old wooden huts of explorers still stand, preserved by the cold as if the men had just stepped outside for a moment. Shackleton's base at Cape Roy still holds jars of food, boots, and handwritten notes, untouched for over a century. At Scott's hut on Ross Island, the air still carries the faint scent of smoke and seal oil. Nothing decays here. Bacteria cannot thrive, wood never rots, even fabric remains soft beneath the chill. Inside those huts, time has stopped. The world outside may have changed, but within those walls, the ghosts of explorers still whisper through the silence. Scientists and conservators tend these fragile places with reverence, knowing they are among the most perfectly preserved memories of humanity's courage. To step inside is to feel the presence of those who once laughed and despaired beneath the same howling wind, men whose dreams froze into the walls around them. The ice has kept their world suspended in time, a century-long whisper of endurance and faith. When the mid-20th century dawned, the age of exploration gave way to the age of understanding. In 1957, during the International Geophysical Year, nations across the planet joined together for the first time to study Earth as one living system. It was a quiet miracle of cooperation in a world often divided by war and politics. Antarctica became the heart of this effort. 12 countries established year-round research stations, bringing instruments to measure magnetism, seismic waves, and cosmic rays. The frozen land, once seen as a prize to be conquered, became instead a shared frontier of science and peace. From these humble beginnings grew a vast network of study, climate observation, astrophysics, oceanography, all carried out beneath skies alive with auroras. The spirit born in that year reshaped how humanity saw the poles, not as trophies, but as teachers. Beneath the cold and silence, the world's last wilderness had become a classroom for the planet's future. Antarctica is unlike any other place on Earth. Every other continent bears footprints, hearths, tools, and songs, traces of lives lived for thousands of years. But not here. No ancient villages rest beneath this snow, no ancestors sang stories of the wind. The land was simply too harsh, the distances too great, the cold too absolute. When humans finally arrived, they came not to live, but to learn. Today, scientists and researchers stay for months or years, studying penguins, seals, the shifting ice, and even the stars themselves. When they leave, the land returns to silence, unchanged. Antarctica remains the only continent with no native human population, a blank page at the bottom of the globe, shared by all but owned by none. Its emptiness holds a quiet peace, a reminder that some places still belong only to the earth itself, untouched by history, speaking softly in the language of wind and snow. Far to the north, across the other end of the world, the Arctic tells a different story, one where people and ice have lived side by side for thousands of years. For the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, snow and ice are not obstacles but companions, living parts of the landscape that breathe, shift, and guide. Their languages hold dozens of words for snow, snow that drifts, that crusts, that sings beneath boots, ice that forms clear and new, and ice that deceives with its thin, fragile sheen. These words are not just descriptions, they are maps, warnings, and poetry all at once. Each word carries the wisdom of generations who watched the sky, listened to the ice, and learned when it was safe to travel, or when seals would surface to breathe. Their languages are woven from observation, memory, and care, a dialogue between people and the patient intelligence of the land. To speak these words is to read the Arctic like a book, one that changes daily yet remains eternal. The cold, though powerful, has never silenced the human spirit. It has shaped it. And in both poles, north and south, humanity found not emptiness, but reflection. The ice became a mirror, showing who we are when the world strips away comfort and leaves only endurance, compassion, and the will to go on. In 1959, a few years after the International Geophysical Year, the world made a promise unlike any before. 12 nations signed the Antarctic Treaty, declaring that the entire continent would belong to no one, that it would exist only for peace and scientific discovery. No military bases, no weapons, no claims of ownership. In the middle of the Cold War, when nations bristled with distrust, this treaty became a rare light. It was proof that cooperation could survive even in the coldest extremes. Today, over 50 countries honor that agreement, protecting Antarctica as a natural sanctuary. Mining is forbidden. The fragile ecosystems are shielded from exploitation. Within the treaty lies a hopeful truth, that knowledge can be more powerful than conquest, and that even in a frozen wasteland, humanity can choose unity over division. The treaty made Antarctica not a prize, but a promise that endures like the ice itself. Across the white horizon, dozens of research stations now stand like tiny islands of warmth and light. From the icy shores of the Antarctic Peninsula to the lonely heights of the polar plateau, small clusters of buildings blink under the aurora. Some stations are permanent, others seasonal, but all share the same purpose: to understand the planet from its quietest vantage point. Inside, scientists share meals, laughter, and the long silence of polar night. They track glaciers, study penguins, and watch the atmosphere change one molecule at a time. When storms rage outside, they gather together while the wind shakes the walls. From space, their lights sparkle faintly, scattered like stars across the ice. Each one is a heartbeat of human curiosity, a reminder that even at the edge of the world, we reach outward, searching for meaning in the silence. Beneath the surface of the South Pole lies another kind of exploration, not of land or sea, but of the universe itself. Buried deep in the ice, thousands of sensors form the IceCube Neutrino Observatory, a telescope made not of glass, but of frozen water. It waits in perfect stillness for ghostly visitors, neutrinos, tiny particles that pass through the Earth almost without trace. Trillions of them stream through our bodies every second, silent and invisible. But when one strikes an atom inside the ice, it creates a flash of blue light, like a tiny star being born beneath the surface. From these faint signals, scientists learn about distant galaxies, exploding stars, and the birth of cosmic rays. Even here, at the coldest place on Earth, we are listening to the whispers of the universe. And so, beneath the surface of silence, the story of the poles continues, not only through data and discovery, but through the quiet heartbeat of the planet itself. Each glacier and drifting floe becomes a page in the Earth's diary, each whisper of wind a word written across eternity. As seasons turn and the light returns after months of darkness, the first beams of sun glide over the horizon like a gentle hand waking a sleeping world. Ice sparkles, water stirs, and the faint sound of cracking echoes through the still air as the frozen continent exhales. In those moments, it is easy to believe that the Earth is alive in every sense, breathing through snow, dreaming in light. Penguins gather along the edges of the sea ice, their black and white forms moving like musical notes across a vast, white score. They call to one another in short, lilting voices that carry through the cold. Seals surface through holes in the ice, their whiskers glittering with frozen mist, while beneath them, the southern ocean hums with unseen life, krill drifting in clouds, jellyfish pulsing slowly in the deep, and whales singing far below the reach of human sound. Each creature is part of the same quiet rhythm, bound to the sun and sea in ways we can only imagine. When night returns, the auroras awaken, painting rivers of color across the sky. Green waves shimmer and curl, violet edges flicker and fade, and for a few hours the heavens seem to breathe. In that glow, the snow glints like crushed glass, the ice takes on the colors of dreams, and everything, mountain, ocean, wind, feels woven into one great movement. The aurora connects the poles in invisible threads of energy. The same solar winds that dance above Antarctica also race across the Arctic sky, where they ripple over frozen forests and silent tundra, touching both ends of the Earth with the same electric grace. Far to the north, the Arctic waits, a mirror image, but alive with its own spirit. Here, the ice floats rather than stands, and beneath it, the ocean breathes. Polar bears roam the drifting floes, their heavy paws spreading wide to balance on the fragile surface. Each step is measured, each breath a puff of steam against the endless blue. When the wind rises, they lower their heads and move through it, part of the storm rather than against it. Nearby, seals rest on patches of ice, their sleek bodies glistening under the faint sun. The sea is full of secrets. Narwhals with spiral tusks like ivory spears glide in silence. Walruses huddle on beaches, murmuring softly in their sleep, and far beneath them, currents carry nutrients that feed an entire kingdom of fish and plankton. As summer comes, the tundra blooms in a miracle of color. Tiny purple saxifrage, yellow poppies, and white cotton grass cover the ground like a secret garden awakened from a long dream. Birds return from faraway continents, terns, geese, and sandpipers, their cries filling the air with life. The Arctic fox, nimble and bright-eyed, changes its fur from white to brown, blending perfectly with the rocks and moss. It moves gracefully through the brief warmth, hunting and playing, its reflection flickering in puddles of melting snow. For a few golden weeks, the sun never sets. It hovers just above the horizon, circling the sky in a slow, perpetual twilight. Under its soft glow, rivers glisten, glaciers drip like silver threads, and the air smells faintly of salt and flowers. It is a fleeting peace, a breath between seasons. Soon the cold will return, wrapping the land once more in silence. But for now, the Arctic hums with quiet joy, as if remembering that even in the coldest places, warmth can bloom. The people of the far north have always known this truth. The Inuit, the Sami, the Chukchi, and others who call the Arctic home have lived in rhythm with the land for countless generations. They read the snow the way others read books. The bend of a snowdrift tells them where the wind has been. The pattern of cracks on the ice tells them where it is safe to walk. Their stories weave lessons and laughter into the fabric of the cold. They tell of foxes who bring fire, of whales who remember songs older than time, of the aurora as the dance of spirits in the sky. Around the glow of lamps made from seal oil, children listen while the wind hums outside. These stories, passed from voice to voice, are maps of survival and tenderness, reminders that the polar world is not empty. It is alive with memory. As technology has grown, the Arctic too has become a place of study, where scientists work alongside indigenous communities to understand how the ice is changing. Satellites trace the shrinking floes, sensors record the thinning permafrost, and yet, within these studies, there is a shared reverence. Every measurement is a gesture of respect toward the planet's balance. Both poles, though distant, are threads of the same fabric, each reflecting the other's light. When the Antarctic's glaciers release icebergs into the Southern Ocean, their echo is felt in the currents that drift northward. When the Arctic warms, its air patterns ripple south, whispering through the winds of the world. The Earth sings through these exchanges, an unseen harmony connecting every ocean, cloud, and shore. Sometimes, at the height of night, when both poles are cloaked in darkness and the stars burn bright, it feels as though the planet pauses to listen to itself. In that stillness, the boundaries between north and south dissolve. The auroras flicker in opposite skies but are born from the same cosmic breath. The animals sleep, the ice groans softly as it shifts, and beneath it all flows a deep, ancient music, the slow pulse of the Earth's heart. Scientists studying seismic waves once said the planet rings like a bell after great quakes. Perhaps, in quieter ways, it hums all the time, its tone carried through mountains, oceans, and ice. As explorers once searched for glory, today's wanderers seek understanding. Submarines drift beneath the polar caps, satellites peer down through the darkness, and researchers huddle over screens that display the heartbeat of glaciers in lines and colors. Yet, beyond the instruments, there is a feeling that cannot be measured, the sense of standing at the edge of the world, surrounded by beauty so vast it erases all noise inside the mind. The poles remind us of scale, of humility, of how small and yet how wondrous our lives are in the face of time. The explorers of old left footprints in journals. The scientists of now leave data and care. And one day, future generations will follow, listening to the same wind and seeing the same lights above the ice. Back in Antarctica, the auroras rise again, green curtains rippling like water across the heavens. In their glow, the frozen mountains gleam, and the sea ice glows faintly from below. The penguins huddle together, their voices soft and rhythmic, as if singing a lullaby to the night. Somewhere beneath the surface, a whale exhales, and its plume catches the moonlight like silver smoke. High above, cosmic rays strike the atmosphere, sending faint blue sparks through the ice cube detectors buried deep in the snow, the universe touching the Earth in a language of light. The story of the poles is, in the end, a story of connection. Between past and future, ice and fire, silence and song. It is the story of what happens when humans meet the edges of their world and find that those edges are alive. The Arctic and Antarctic, two halves of the same breath, balance the planet's rhythms. When one warms, the other listens. When one freezes, the other exhales. Together they form a polar symphony, a gentle, continuous music of reflection and renewal. And as you listen, somewhere beyond your room, the Earth is still turning, its poles glowing faintly beneath the stars. The auroras are dancing even now, painting soft ribbons of light over the sleeping world. The explorer's huts stand quietly, the fox curls beneath its fur, the whale sings through dark water, and the snow drifts softly, erasing footsteps until all is calm once more. The poles are not distant, they are part of the same earth beneath your feet, part of the same air you breathe, part of the same ancient heartbeat that moves through everything that lives. Close your eyes, and you can almost feel it, the hush of wind over endless ice, the soft rhythm of the tide beneath the frozen sea, and the quiet promise that even in the coldest corners of creation, warmth, wonder, and life still endure. Discoveries reveal that the polar regions were not always cold, and even now, beneath their frozen stillness, the poles are alive with invisible lights, quiet sounds, and stories written in ice. Beneath the eternal night of Antarctica, where temperatures fall lower than anywhere else on Earth, scientists have placed delicate instruments deep within the crystal layers of ancient ice. There, in a world of perfect silence, they watch for the faintest flashes of blue light. Each flash is a messenger from beyond, a neutrino, a tiny ghost particle born from exploding stars, black holes, and cosmic rays traveling across the edge of the universe. By tracing those flashes, scientists can map the birthplaces of these elusive travelers, using the purity of Antarctic ice as their guide. This ice is so clear, so still, that it becomes like glass, a cosmic detector listening to the whispers of galaxies. Each spark of light beneath the ice is a memory from a distant past, a message that has crossed billions of years and unthinkable distances just to arrive here, in the frozen heart of the South Pole. Above the ice, high on the plateau where the air is thin, dry, And untouched by human noise, radio telescopes gaze upward into the endless sky, their dishes tilted toward the faint afterglow of creation itself, the cosmic microwave background, the fading light of the Big Bang. The cold air, so pure it barely moves, allows them to capture whispers from the beginning of time. In those delicate patterns of radiation lie the secrets of the universe's first moments, the time when matter, light, and space were still learning how to exist. By studying this soft glow, scientists hope to understand how galaxies were born, how they scattered across the sky, and why the universe continues to expand like a breath that never ends. These telescopes work silently through the long polar night, under a sky of never-setting stars and slow-dancing auroras, peering backward nearly 14 billion years. Antarctica's stillness becomes a window into the dawn of everything, allowing humanity to look not just outward, but backward, into the story of all beginnings. Yet the ice itself is not only a window to the cosmos, it is a memory of Earth. Layer upon layer, snowfall upon snowfall, Antarctica and Greenland have built living archives of the planet's past. Every winter, each delicate flake traps a whisper of air, a breath of dust, a memory of temperature. Over thousands of years, these layers have pressed together, writing history into crystal. Scientists drill deep into the ice, pulling up long cylinders called ice cores, frozen scrolls that can be read like ancient manuscripts. Within them are the secrets of Earth's heartbeat, the rise and fall of greenhouse gases, the rhythm of ice ages, the soft fingerprints of volcanoes that once darkened the skies. Every trapped bubble of air is a word, every shift in layer thickness a sentence, and together they tell the story of a planet constantly changing, breathing, and adapting. Modern instruments now study how these same ice sheets are changing once again, melting, thinning, flowing faster toward the sea. What lies frozen in the past reveals what may come in the future. The ice holds both memory and prophecy, a mirror showing us where we have been, and where we may yet go. There are places in Antarctica where snow never falls, where the land is so dry and windswept that it looks more like another planet. These are the McMurdo Dry Valleys, ancient, stony deserts in the coldest place on Earth. Here, no trees grow, no rivers flow, and only a few hardy microbes cling to life in hidden pockets of rock. The air is almost completely without moisture, and the soil, painted in tones of red and ochre, looks eerily like the surface of Mars. Because of this, scientists come here to test the rovers and instruments that will one day explore the red planet. Machines roll across the gravel plains, feeling the crunch of frost under their wheels, practicing for a world even more desolate than this one. In the thin, biting air, human breath turns instantly to mist. Standing among the stone valleys, surrounded by silence and wind, one can almost imagine a future astronaut walking under an alien sun. The dry valleys remind us that even on Earth, there are places that feel not of this world, places where nature shows us the meaning of isolation, endurance, and the edge of possibility. But Antarctica is not just a place of silence and science, it is also the planet's warning and its hope. In the 1980s, scientists studying the atmosphere above the frozen continent discovered something alarming. Each spring, when sunlight returned after months of darkness, a strange thing happened. The ozone in the upper air, the invisible shield that protects Earth from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays, suddenly thinned to almost nothing. A vast hole had opened above the continent. The cause, they found, was human. Chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons, used in old sprays and coolants, had drifted into the stratosphere, breaking the ozone apart. Cold temperatures and polar clouds made the destruction worse. The world was shocked, but instead of despair, something extraordinary followed: cooperation. Nations came together to sign the Montreal Protocol, agreeing to phase out the harmful substances. Slowly, the ozone began to heal. The Antarctic sky, once a symbol of damage, became a symbol of renewal, proof that when humanity listens, it can repair what it has harmed. In the faint blue light above the ice, the atmosphere itself reminds us that our planet is both fragile and forgiving, capable of recovery if given care. From high above, satellites glide in quiet orbits, their silver surfaces catching sunlight as they pass over the poles. They watch over the ice like gentle guardians, using radar and laser altimeters to measure its height and thickness with astonishing precision. Over years and decades, they have recorded a quiet truth: the ice is changing. Glaciers creep back, sea ice shrinks, and meltwater carves blue rivers that snake toward the sea. From space, these movements look small, but together they tell a story of transformation. Yet the satellites are not only witnesses, they are guides. Through their eyes, scientists model how seas may rise, how coastlines might change, and how we can adapt. Their silent watching becomes an act of care, a way of seeing that teaches understanding before loss. From space, the poles shimmer, delicate, luminous, alive, not as remote wastelands, but as vital organs in the living body of Earth. Deep in the ocean, another story unfolds. At the edge of Antarctica, where katabatic winds sweep across open water, the sea begins to freeze. As the surface turns to ice, it leaves behind salt, making the remaining water below heavier and colder. This dense water sinks, sliding down the continental slope into the abyss, spreading outward along the ocean floor. It becomes what scientists call Antarctic bottom water, a vast, slow-moving current that creeps through the deep basins of the world's oceans, carrying oxygen and nutrients to places no light has ever reached. This current connects every sea on Earth. It takes centuries to complete its journey, yet its steady motion keeps the oceans alive. Without it, the deep sea would stagnate, starved of breath. In this way, Antarctica breathes for the planet, its cold pulse circulating through the arteries of the sea. It is one of nature's grandest hidden engines, silent, unseen, essential, turning beneath the ice as steadily as time itself. The polar oceans are not empty. They are alive and endlessly working, performing one of the planet's most vital tasks: capturing carbon from the air and tucking it away in the deep. Cold water, like a sponge, absorbs carbon dioxide more easily than warm. Tiny plankton living near the surface take in this gas and, through the gentle miracle of photosynthesis, turn it into life, into soft bodies that drift downward when they die, forming what scientists call marine snow. This delicate rain of carbon sinks slowly, falling mile after mile, burying carbon in the seafloor for centuries. It's a quiet, natural balance that keeps Earth's air gentle and breathable. Even as ice melts and currents shift, the polar seas continue this work, breathing in what we breathe out, reminding us that even the coldest waters carry warmth in their purpose. Beneath the glittering flows, chemistry and life dance together, unseen but essential, protecting the balance of the world. And around this frozen continent flows the wildest sea on Earth, the Southern Ocean. Here, no continent stands in its way. Winds race freely around the globe, building waves taller than houses, rolling endlessly around the planet. Some swells rise more than 20 meters, their tops foaming with spray that glitters like shattered glass under the weak sun. To watch them is to see the raw rhythm of the planet, water in its purest, wildest form, moving to a beat older than any heartbeat. Satellites and buoys trace these waves, helping scientists understand how wind gives energy to water, how the ocean shapes weather across the world. For sailors who have ventured into these latitudes, the Southern Ocean is both a test and a teacher, a reminder that even in a world we have mapped and measured, there remain places that answer only to the wind, the moon, and the deep pulse of the Earth itself. The Southern Ocean is unlike any other. It is the only ocean that forms a perfect ring around a continent, touching no land as it flows. It binds together the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, weaving them into one global system. Through its endless motion, the planet's heat is exchanged, its salt and nutrients mixed, its climate regulated. It is a great, cold belt that ties the world together, the Earth's own circulatory system. In its cold embrace live creatures shaped by its rhythm, penguins diving through sapphire water, seals gliding between icebergs, krills shimmering in dense clouds beneath the waves. All depend on the cold, on the stillness, on the pulse of the deep. And as the auroras shimmer in green and violet curtains across the sky, the poles together form what might be called a global symphony. The Arctic breathing in the north, the Antarctic exhaling in the south, two ends of one heartbeat. Each spark of light beneath the ice, each swirl of current, each quiet layer of snow is a note in that eternal song, a song that reminds us how deeply everything is connected, and how fragile that harmony can be. From the far south, the story drifts northward, carried by the same wind that crosses oceans and the same stars that shine on both horizons. Slowly, the world tilts, and the frozen vastness of Antarctica gives way to another kingdom of ice, the Arctic. Unlike the South, which is a continent cloaked in ice, the Arctic is an ocean wearing a crown of frozen seas. Here, the ice floats and shifts, cracking softly in the quiet of endless twilight. Beneath the frozen skin of water, life thrives in secret. Tiny plankton glowing faintly like underwater stars, fish moving slowly through the green-blue light, and seals gliding in silence, their movements graceful and unhurried. Above the surface, the air glitters with frost, and snowflakes fall so lightly that they seem to hang in the air, refusing to land. The Arctic is not empty. It is alive in ways too quiet for most to notice. On a distant floe, a polar bear moves, patient, immense, yet quiet as a dream. Its fur, though white to our eyes, is hollow, trapping warmth from the faint northern sun. The bear's breath drifts like mist, disappearing into the same air that carries the faint call of seabirds. It walks across a frozen world, following the faint scent of a seal breathing through a hole in the ice. Every step is slow, careful, deliberate. The bear has learned to move with the same rhythm as the earth itself, patient, unhurried, eternal. When the bear pauses, the whole world seems to hold its breath. The silence of the Arctic is not empty silence. It is a living stillness, filled with meaning, filled with time. Nearby, on rocky shores and snow-covered cliffs, colonies of birds gather, puffins, guillemots, and kittiwakes, their cries rising like wind through ancient stone. They come here in summer, when the sun refuses to set, when the light circles the sky without ever dipping below the horizon. The Arctic summer is a season of endless day. Flowers bloom for a brief, frantic moment. Moss glows green on the tundra. Rivers of meltwater carve paths through the permafrost. Caribou walk across these lands in long, whispering herds, following trails older than memory. The air hums with the wings of insects, the songs of birds, the soft trickle of meltwater. But even in this brief season of abundance, the memory of cold lingers, waiting for its return. As the months pass, the sun begins to dip lower each day, until one morning, it does not rise at all. The long night begins, not an ending, but a transformation. The Arctic winter is a deep, blue silence. The stars return, the aurora awakens. Green ribbons of light unfurl across the sky, bending and twisting like waves of sound. Sometimes the lights are so bright that they cast faint shadows on the snow. To the people who have lived here for thousands of years, the Inuit and other northern communities, the aurora is a living spirit, a dance of ancestors, a whisper of voices beyond the veil of the world. Their stories carry warmth through the cold, teaching respect for the land and its rhythm. The Arctic has always been a teacher of patience, balance, and humility. Beneath the frozen sea, whales sing, low, mournful songs that echo for miles. Bowhead whales, ancient giants of the Arctic, swim through ice-laced water, their songs slow and deep, like the voice of time itself. Their world is dark but not lifeless. Tiny crustaceans called krill shimmer like dust in a beam of light, feeding the fish, who feed the seals, who feed the bears, a circle as old as the ice itself. Every creature here, from the smallest plankton to the largest whale, depends on the cold, on the stillness, on the pulse of the polar ocean. Even the silence between their songs is part of the symphony. And as the Arctic lives and breathes, so does its southern twin, Antarctica, thousands of miles away but beating in rhythm. When the Arctic sleeps in winter darkness, the Antarctic wakes in the glow of endless daylight. Penguins waddle across the ice in the south as polar bears roam in the north. Two worlds that will never meet, yet mirror each other perfectly. The cycle of light and darkness moves between them, like a pendulum swinging through time, ensuring that somewhere on Earth, there is always dawn. The planet breathes through these poles, inhaling at one end, exhaling at the other, in a slow, unending rhythm that keeps everything alive. Beneath the northern lights and southern stars, scientists continue their quiet work. In warm huts glowing faintly against the blue-white snow, they listen, to the hum of instruments, to the whisper of the wind, to the soft crack of distant ice. Every measurement, Every observation is an act of wonder, a way to understand not just the cold, but the story written within it. They study air bubbles that hold the breath of mammoths, dust that remembers ancient volcanoes, and starlight that began its journey before Earth was even formed. Their work reminds us that even the smallest things, a grain of ice, a particle of light, can carry the weight of eternity. From space, satellites trace this balance, watching the north and south turn slowly beneath them, twin mirrors reflecting sunlight and shadow. They see the slow drift of sea ice, the glimmer of auroras, the breath of the planet rising and falling. In their silent orbit, they witness the unity of opposites, heat and cold, light and dark, life and stillness, all bound together by gravity and time. To look at Earth from space is to see not two poles, but one living whole, spinning in harmony. The world may seem vast, but it is connected in every breath. The same air that freezes in the Antarctic sky will one day drift over the Arctic Sea. The same water that melts from Greenland's glaciers may fall as snow upon the South Pole centuries later. The same dust from a desert may settle upon an ice sheet half a world away. Everything moves in slow, graceful cycles, patient, eternal, balanced. As night deepens at one pole, dawn breaks at the other. The auroras fade, the stars blink softly through the thinning darkness, and the cycle begins again. The polar regions, these bright, fragile crowns of our planet, continue their silent song. Beneath their coldness lies warmth, beneath their stillness, life, beneath their silence, a story that binds us all. The Arctic and the Antarctic are not opposites, but reflections, two mirrors at the edge of the world, forever facing each other across the curve of the Earth. So when you close your eyes and imagine the quiet of the poles, remember that what you hear, the faint sigh of wind, the slow crack of ice, the whisper of distant waves, is not emptiness. It is the heartbeat of the planet. It is the song of everything, from the smallest snowflake to the farthest star, all breathing together in one endless, gentle rhythm, the polar symphony of a living, dreaming world. Driven by powerful winds, this Antarctic circumpolar current carries more water than any other, shaping the breath of the planet as it circles endlessly beneath the southern stars, a silver ribbon of motion that never truly rests. It flows around the frozen continent like a heartbeat, slow and steady, whispering to every ocean it touches, blending warmth with cold, memory with movement. Within its turning embrace, the sea becomes a living storybook. Tiny creatures drift like forgotten letters from the deep, and the sky above seems to lean closer to listen. The air here is clean beyond imagining, cold enough to sharpen thought into silence, and when the wind passes over the ice it hums with the quiet voice of the earth itself. To stand at its edge is to feel time dissolve, each gust a reminder that the planet has its own pulse, one that beats far older than our memories. Beneath this restless water lives the smallest of the strong, the Antarctic krill. Billions upon billions, shimmering clouds of life so small they could slip through the eye of a needle, yet together they turn the sea green with abundance. They rise through the darkness each night to feed on invisible gardens of algae, and as they move, the ocean stirs and breathes with them. Penguins, seals, whales, and countless fish owe their lives to these fragile drifters, these quiet keepers of balance. When the moonlight touches their swarming bodies, the sea seems to glitter with a second sky, as if the stars themselves had fallen to rest in water. The krill remind us that even the smallest hearts can sustain the largest worlds, that gentleness can carry great power if it moves in harmony. And where the krill drift, giants follow. The bowhead whales of the Arctic, cousins to the southern leviathans, glide slowly through their ancient home, songs echoing across centuries. Their voices are deep and haunting, weaving through the cold like a memory that refuses to fade. Some of these great beings have lived for more than 200 years, bearing within their bodies the quiet evidence of time, old harpoons embedded in bone, reminders of human stories long past. They have seen empires rise and fall, the ice advance and retreat, the sky change its face again and again. When a bowhead sings, it is the sound of endurance, a lullaby written in patience and faith. Each note seems to ripple through the water with meaning beyond language, telling of love, loss, survival, and the simple rhythm of breathing in a place where the world holds its breath. Their presence turns the frozen sea into a cathedral of calm, where every heartbeat is an echo of life persisting through endless cold. Nearby, in the same frigid expanse, the orcas, sleek, black and white and brilliant, move with a purpose that seems half thought, half dream. They travel in families bound not just by blood but by shared memory, teaching one another how to live and how to thrive. Sometimes, when a seal rests upon a floating sheet of ice, the orcas gather in a line, and with perfect coordination they surge forward, creating a wave that topples the platform and delivers the seal to the sea. It is a lesson in intelligence and cooperation, proof that nature's sharpest mind may wear a mask of beauty. When the hunt is done, they share their meal, taking turns in silent respect. In the pale light filtering through snow clouds, their fins cut the surface like brushstrokes on liquid glass, a graceful dance that binds generations together. To watch them is to see power softened by understanding, a reminder that strength, when shared, becomes harmony. Further along the drifting ice, another hunter moves in solitary grace, the leopard seal. Long and lithe, its body glides through the icy water with the ease of something born from frost. Its skin, speckled with dark rosettes, glimmers like liquid shadow. With jaws strong enough to crack bone, it hunts penguins and fish, yet behind the fierce exterior lies curiosity, a spark of intelligence that peers through the water toward any strange visitor. Divers who meet its gaze speak of eyes that seem to weigh them gently, not as prey, but as something unknown and worthy of wonder. When the leopard seal sings, the ocean turns into an alien dreamscape. Its voice ripples through the deep in echoing tones that sound more like starlight than sound. Alone beneath the ice, surrounded by silence and cold, it becomes the living soul of Antarctica, beautiful, dangerous, and utterly alive. Its solitude is not emptiness but serenity, a lesson in how to belong completely to one's world. Above, in the thin, trembling air of the stratosphere, clouds unlike any others bloom during the endless polar night. These are the polar stratospheric clouds, luminous veils that shimmer with colors too soft to name, pinks that melt into greens, violets that whisper into blue. They hang like fragile dreams across the dark sky, glowing with the last memory of sunlight that has dipped far below the horizon. They seem to float between worlds, half light, half ice, their beauty born from cold so deep that it becomes artistry. Yet within their grace lies quiet danger, for these same clouds play a hidden part in the delicate balance of our atmosphere, helping to unravel the protective ozone that shields the Earth from the harshness of space. Still, when they appear, one cannot help but feel wonder. To witness them is to watch the sky dream aloud, to see color woven into the night. They ripple and shimmer as if the heavens themselves were breathing. Few ever see them, and fewer still forget. And then, one night, the sky awakens completely. Charged particles from the sun, gifts of distant fire, stream toward the poles, drawn along invisible lines of magnetism until they collide with the upper air. Oxygen glows green and red, nitrogen shimmers in violet and blue. Curtains of light unfurl across the dark in slow, sinuous motion, auroras, dancing silently in the thin, cold air. In the north they call it the aurora borealis, in the south the aurora australis, but both are the same breath of the cosmos, painting twin crowns upon the planet's head. Sometimes, far above the clouds, astronauts can see both glowing at once, reflections of each other across the curved horizon. From below, the light seems alive, moving, pulsing, as if it hears the rhythm of the sea and dances to match it. For those who watch, wrapped in fur or wool beneath the frozen sky, it feels as though the universe itself has opened its eyes. The auroras speak without words, reminding us that even in the deepest night, the world is full of fire. When dawn returns, or what passes for dawn in this land of long twilights, the light arrives slowly, like someone gently waking a sleeping child. The sun hovers low for hours, circling rather than rising, painting the sky with soft gold and tender violet. Sometimes the day never truly begins, and sometimes the night never truly ends. Instead, both mingle in endless hues of blue and rose. Polar stratospheric clouds shimmer high above while diamond dust, tiny crystals floating through the air, catches the faint sunlight and turns it into a quiet snowfall of light. The whole sky becomes a mirror of the sea below, a reflection of calm suspended between darkness and brightness. Here beauty is not loud, it is patient. The poles do not shout their wonder. They whisper it slowly into the hearts of those who stay long enough to listen. And as the quiet light drifts around the horizon, the polar oceans breathe in unison, north answering south, their stories tied by the slow turning of the earth. Beneath the mirror of ice, the water is not still but full of motion and life unseen. Transparent jellyfish pulse like tiny lanterns, slow and rhythmic, drifting through the darkness, as though they are the sea's own heartbeat made visible. Small fish shimmer with scales that catch the faint glow from above, scattering it like fragments of starlight. Deep below, strange creatures glow softly in the pressure and cold, each flicker of light a language only the deep understands. In these silent worlds, survival is an art, and beauty hides in forms no eye on land has ever dreamed of. The ocean here does not rush. It sighs, patient and eternal, a cradle for all that breathes and all that waits. Icebergs rise from its surface like mountains adrift, each one a wandering cathedral carved by time, their blue hearts glowing from within. When they crack and roll, the sound is deep and slow, like the closing of a great stone door somewhere beneath the sea. Every iceberg is ancient, holding inside it air from ages before humankind, and when they melt, they whisper those memories back into the water, returning the world's forgotten breaths to the sky. Far across this same water, at the other end of the world, the Arctic dreams its own cold dream. Here the ice drifts in slow circles, carried by wind and current, forming patterns like fingerprints upon the sea. Bowhead whales sing beneath it, polar bears tread softly above it, and seals slip through its narrow cracks with practiced grace. The Arctic is a mirror of the Antarctic, yet not the same. It is wilder in color, nearer to the forests and the mountains of men, and its light carries a different kind of tenderness. Where the southern world is solitary and vast, the northern one feels close, filled with the scent of snow and salt and ancient pines. When the sun returns after months of darkness, the world seems to awaken all at once. Rivers crack open, birds return from unimaginable distances, and the air rings with the laughter of life remembered. The reindeer begin their endless walk across the tundra, and the Arctic fox, white as windblown frost, trots lightly over the snow, listening for the faintest sound beneath its paws. Every motion in this place seems careful and deliberate, as though the land itself has learned the rhythm of the heart that beats slow to survive the cold. Sometimes, in the deepest part of winter, when the stars seem close enough to touch, the same auroras that dance over the south unfold here too, green and violet veils rising and falling like the breath of the planet. The Inuit and the Sami once watched them and told stories to explain their shimmering shapes, spirits playing ball with a walrus skull, or ancestors lighting the way for hunters lost in the snow. To them, the lights were alive, full of meaning and memory, and in their soft glow people found both comfort and mystery. Today, those who live beneath these skies still look up in silence when the heavens begin to move, and though science now explains the dance of particles and magnetic fields, the feeling remains unchanged: awe, humility, the sense of standing in a universe that is at once immense and tender. Between these poles, the earth turns, carrying heat and wind and current from one to the other like breath moving through a sleeping body. The great Antarctic current wraps around the globe, meeting the northern streams that flow past Greenland and Iceland, blending warm with cold until the whole planet feels like a single living thing. Deep below Greenland's ice, a hidden canyon runs for hundreds of kilometers, unseen by any eye, carved long before the first humans spoke. Rivers still flow beneath the ice there, secret and persistent, carrying the melted heart of glaciers toward the sea. It is a quiet network of movement, invisible but essential, reminding us that even what seems frozen beyond time is always changing. Meteorites, fragments of space wandering through the void, fall onto the ice and remain preserved for millennia, waiting for the curious to find them. Nowhere else on Earth are they gathered so gently. The white surface holds them as though keeping safe the stars that fell. Scientists who come here to collect them kneel on the snow like pilgrims, searching for messages written in stone from beyond the world. In their hands the black fragments gleam faintly, older than the earth itself. The wind passes around them, whispering nothing, and for a moment, all time seems to exist together. Cosmic dust, ancient ice, human breath. The explorers who once ventured into these lands came not for comfort but for meaning. Their ships froze in the ice, their names became myths, yet they were drawn by something larger than discovery, a desire to stand at the edge of everything and listen. They endured the silence, the endless white, the hunger and the cold, to prove that even in the loneliest places courage could survive. Some never returned, yet their stories remained carried by the wind and the drifting snow. Wooden huts still stand on the Antarctic coast, weathered but upright, the tin cups and handwritten notes left behind as if their owners had just stepped outside for a walk that never ended. Inside, the air is heavy with time. Outside, penguins march past the doorways without concern, their black and white forms like little monks on pilgrimage. The penguins live in great colonies, thousands upon thousands gathered together against the cold, their cries echoing across the ice like a choir both joyous and sad. They huddle for warmth, taking turns on the outer edge so none freeze alone, each small heart beating in rhythm with the next. When their chicks hatch, they hold them on their feet, sheltering them beneath folds of feather and care around the wind howls. But the circle of life endures, fragile yet fierce. Above them, the sun drifts in slow arcs, refusing to set, painting their world in silver and gold. Even the air itself seems alive here. On clear, freezing days, the sunlight catches tiny ice crystals suspended high above, creating halos and mock suns, bright circles and twin lights that ring the real sun like jewelry. These sundogs, as they are called, appear and fade with the changing breeze, illusions born of cold and light, reminders that nature loves to play. Sometimes a rainbow made of frost appears, bending through the air where no rain has fallen for centuries. In moments like these, the sky seems to smile as night returns and the long darkness begins again. Another kind of light takes over. High above, unseen molecules glow faintly, a soft air glow that shimmers like the memory of sunlight. It is not bright enough to cast shadows, but it turns the blackness to a tender greenish haze, so faint that only those who truly watch will notice. It feels like the world dreaming of the day that was, holding on to warmth it cannot yet forget. For those who live through the polar winter, this gentle glow becomes a companion, a reminder that even when the sun is gone, its memory remains in the air, in the snow, in the hearts of all who wait. And so the poles mirror each other in quiet majesty. Where one sleeps, the other wakes. Where one breathes in, the other breathes out. Their balance keeps the planet steady, their cold preserves its warmth, and between them spins every story ever told. They are not the ends of the earth, but its beginning and its promise too vast, white pages upon which time continues to write. Driven by powerful winds, this Antarctic circumpolar current carries more water than any other on Earth, circling the world like a slow-moving silver belt beneath the drifting ice, binding the oceans together in a quiet rhythm older than time itself. Beneath its rolling surface, the deep blue swells whisper stories of creation and endurance, and through those frigid waters move the silent guardians of the South, the whales, the seals, and the tiny, shimmering krill that shimmer like drifting stardust under the pale southern sun. Above them the ice shelves rise like sleeping giants, sculpted by wind and eternity, their edges creaking softly as they breathe with the sea. Sometimes a great piece of ice breaks free with a sigh, gliding away to begin a long voyage north, melting slowly into the warmth, and leaving behind the memory of frozen centuries. On those endless white plains, the air itself seems to glow with stillness. Snow falls so gently it seems afraid to touch the ground, and far above, faint halos form around the low sun, rings of light that look almost like dreams caught in the thin polar air. Penguins huddle together, their soft calls lost in the wind, each one a small pulse of warmth against the great cold of the world. Nearby, a seal lifts its head from a hole in the ice, its whiskers glittering with frost as it listens to the silence, then slips soundlessly back into the deep, where the cold no longer bites. Life here is not loud or hurried, it moves with the patience of glaciers, with the slow confidence of something that has always been. When night falls, it is not darkness but an endless blue twilight, a gentle folding of light where stars appear like whispers rather than sparks. Above the frozen continent the aurora begins, silent ribbons of green and violet winding across the heavens, shifting as though stirred by the dreams of the earth itself. They dance for no audience, yet every creature seems to pause beneath them. Penguins still their cries, seals lift their gaze, and the icy cliffs glow faintly with borrowed color. It is a sight so calm that even time feels too slow, listening. And in that stillness you could imagine the world asleep, breathing through snow, dreaming through light. Yet this calm hides great motion. Beneath the surface, warm water from faraway oceans creeps upward, carrying nutrients that feed the smallest lives, and in turn the great whales that follow them. Blue whales move like shadows of mountains, their slow hearts beating once every few seconds, their songs echoing through hundreds of miles of sea. They rise to breathe, sending columns of mist into the freezing air, and for a moment the whole ocean seems to inhale with them. The air tastes of salt and ice and the promise of something eternal. As you drift with them, the edges of Antarctica soften, the white turning to a muted silver as the world curves northward, toward the other pole. The current carries stories from one end of the planet to the other, a single, unbroken loop of water linking both crowns of the earth. In the far distance, beyond the drifts of icebergs that gleam like floating stars, lies the memory of warmth, the knowledge that these frozen lands were not always cold. Long ago, the poles bloomed with forests, ferns and flowers reached for sunlight that never set, and rivers wound lazily beneath green canopies where now there is only ice. Fossils still whisper of that ancient gentleness, leaves preserved in stone, traces of wood sealed beneath glaciers, proof that even the coldest places once held summer. It is almost impossible to imagine now, yet the earth remembers, and in quiet ways it tells us so, in the layers of ice that trap ancient air, in the silent drift of pollen grains carried through time. As your eyes grow heavy, the wind becomes a lullaby, soft, endless, circling the world. Somewhere beyond the horizon, polar bears wander the northern ice, their reflection gliding across water so still it mirrors the sky. Though they have never seen their southern cousins, their lives are tied by the same rhythm of freeze and thaw, by the same breath of the planet that keeps both poles alive. The Arctic's light is different, golden, softer, touched by the memory of sunrise, but its silence hums with the same eternal calm. Foxes move like ghosts across the snow, their paws barely leaving prints. The sea ice groans and shifts beneath them, a living floor that sighs with each tide. In the distance, the call of a whale echoes under the frozen surface, carried through layers of water that glow faintly with drifting plankton. Now combining ancestral wisdom with modern science to adapt, their resilience is as deep as the Arctic itself, rooted, flexible, and wise, and as the world looks north for answers, indigenous voices remind us that the future of the Arctic is inseparable from the people who have always called it home. Retreating Greenland glaciers reveal new islands and fjords, and as these glaciers shrink, their retreat uncovers hidden landscapes that have not seen sunlight for thousands of years. New fjords emerge, stretching inland where ice once lay thick, and isolated ridges become islands in the melting flow. Scientists map these freshly revealed features using satellites and ships, documenting the birth of coastlines in real time. The process is breathtaking and bittersweet, creation through loss. Where ice walls once towered, waterfalls now plunge into green-blue seas. Each new island is both discovery and warning, evidence of a world in transition. In their meltwater flows the story of Earth's changing climate, carving paths that lead from ancient ice into an uncertain future. To stand before a glacier's retreat is to witness geology sped up to human time, the planet rewriting its own edges line by line. Summer in the Arctic brings not only light and thaw, but a living storm of mosquitoes that swarm so thickly they form clouds alive with motion. As tundra ponds and melting snow create temporary wetlands, countless larvae hatch in synchrony, rising into the air in dense, humming veils. These swarms can be so thick that caribou stampede to escape them, and researchers must wear netted hoods just to breathe. Yet despite their nuisance, they are vital to the ecosystem, food for migratory birds and fish, part of the seasonal pulse that sustains Arctic life. In the glow of endless daylight, their wings catch the sun, turning the air into a shimmering haze of movement. Even in the land of ice, life finds a way to fill every fleeting moment of warmth. At the other end of the world, a strange waterfall stains Antarctica's ice with crimson, known as Blood Falls. It is not blood, but briny water rich in iron and oxidized by air. Trapped beneath the glacier for nearly 2 million years, this salty, oxygen-poor liquid carries microbial life that survives without sunlight. When it seeps through cracks and meets the air, the iron rusts, painting the ice with eerie red streaks. Scientists studying blood falls uncover clues about how life might exist on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus. Beneath its surreal beauty lies a living chemistry older than human history, a message written in rust and ice that even in darkness, life persists. The glacier bleeds, but what flows from it is not death, it is endurance, hidden and ancient. In the sub-zero waters around Antarctica, most fish would freeze solid in minutes, yet many species thrive there thanks to a remarkable adaptation: antifreeze proteins circulating in their blood. These molecules prevent ice crystals from forming inside their bodies, allowing them to swim in water colder than their own freezing point. Among the most extraordinary are the ice fish, whose blood is clear, lacking hemoglobin entirely. Scientists believe these adaptations evolved millions of years ago as the Southern Ocean cooled. Today, researchers study these proteins to inspire cryogenics and medicine, hoping to preserve human cells as nature preserves these fish. To see them gliding under the ice, translucent and slow-moving, is to glimpse evolution's quiet genius, life rewriting its chemistry to survive in a world made of cold. Creating new pressure ridges and open leads. Even the silence of midwinter is alive with sound, the river itself sighing under the weight of the cold, nature flexing and speaking in the deep, resonant voice of ice under stress. Hidden deep within East Antarctica lies Lake Vostok, one of the strangest bodies of water on Earth. Sealed beneath miles of ice, it has been cut off from the surface for millions of years, hosting microbial life that thrives without sunlight, heat, or oxygen. Down there, in a darkness unbroken for eons, life endures, small, patient, and utterly extraordinary. Across the white expanse of Antarctica, patches of snow sometimes blush with color, streaks of pink, orange, or green caused by microscopic cold-loving algae that bloom when sunlight returns. Though beautiful, these blooms absorb more heat, accelerating melting and altering local temperatures, a feedback of color that reminds us how delicate the planet's balance is. Yet even this is life persisting, painting the snow in hues of endurance. The polar regions also offer some of the clearest skies on Earth. Far from pollution and moisture, their air is crystalline, allowing stars to shine with steady brilliance. In the endless polar night, constellations circle the horizon without rising or setting, time stretching and folding beneath their light. At the South Pole, the sun rises and sets only once each year, each dawn and dusk a season unto itself. During the long darkness, temperatures fall so low that breath crystallizes in midair, and the only light comes from stars and auroras dancing like ghostly ribbons. When the sun finally returns, it is not just a sunrise, it is a resurrection. The rhythm of day and night here is unlike anywhere else, shaped by the Earth's gentle tilt of 23.5 degrees, the reason seasons exist at all. The poles, more than any other place, embody that rhythm, light and dark, warmth and cold, cycling in cosmic harmony. This tilt shapes everything: migration, weather, climate, even the evolution of life. Without it, the world would be static and gray, but because of it, we have contrast and change, the poetry of time written in sunlight and shadow. It is here, in this frozen isolation, that astronauts train for life beyond Earth. The silence, the cold, and the endless horizon mimic the conditions of space. Inside research bases, small crews live in confinement, testing teamwork through the long polar night. Outside, they learn to work in whiteouts, to handle equipment in sub-zero temperatures, to find calm in monotony. Antarctica becomes both teacher and mirror, showing what endurance truly means. The same cold that challenges life here also makes these lands perfect for testing technology meant for Mars or Europa, machines and humans preparing side by side in a natural laboratory of extremes. The Antarctic Peninsula, meanwhile, is one of the fastest warming places on Earth. Glaciers that once reached the sea have retreated, and ice shelves that stood for millennia have collapsed. Mosses now creep across bare rock, and penguins shift their nesting grounds southward. The warming is both warning and revelation, showing how rapidly change can come even to the coldest corners. Yet in its thaw lies knowledge, a story still being written of adaptation and awareness. Each summer, Greenland sheds billions of tons of meltwater that carves blue rivers through the ice, flows down deep moulins, and vanishes into the sea. From space, these melt lakes shimmer like jewels, forming and draining within days. The pace of loss is accelerating, and with it, the planet's seas slowly rise. Every drop that escapes carries the memory of storms and centuries, a record of air and time. To watch Greenland melt is to watch history flow away, clear, cold, unstoppable. Antarctica, vast beyond comprehension, holds nearly 70% of the world's fresh water, spread across an area 1.5 times larger than the United States. Standing anywhere upon it, the horizon curves visibly, and the world feels emptied of all but sky and snow. It is not the edge of the earth, but its foundation, a frozen heart that balances the climate, reflecting sunlight and holding the breath of centuries. The Arctic Ocean, though the smallest on Earth, is among the most alive. Beneath its shifting flows lies a web of currents linking the Atlantic and Pacific, circulating warmth, nutrients, and life. It is a breathing ocean, shallow but essential, reminding us that size means little next to rhythm and resilience. The Ross Ice Shelf, larger than France, floats at Antarctica's edge like a continent of its own, its walls of blue ice rising 50 meters above the sea. Slowly, it creeps outward until vast sections break away to form icebergs that drift for decades across the Southern Ocean. Even in motion, it is magnificent, a sculpture of gravity, time, and light. Amid this realm of ice, one mountain burns, Mount Erebus, the world's southernmost volcano, its summit steaming above a lake of molten rock. Here, fire and ice meet, their opposites fused in a single act of creation and destruction. Even the invisible forces of the poles are restless. The magnetic North Pole drifts across the Arctic each year, guided by shifting flows of molten metal deep within Earth's core. The world's magnetic field is alive, its pulse slow but steady, like the turning of the planet itself. At the South Pole, a small silver sphere marks the end of the Earth, surrounded by the flags of nations bound in peace by the Antarctic Treaty. Each year, as the ice beneath it shifts, the marker is quietly moved, a ceremony of precision and respect. Standing there, the world feels both immense and delicate, and the silence seems to hum with meaning. There is no sound but the wind, no motion but the turning of the sky. The poles fade now into stillness. The wind softens. The stars hang steady. The frozen seas lie quiet beneath their endless sky. You have traveled through auroras and glaciers, through the breath of whales and the whisper of snow. In these remote corners of the world, time loosens its grip. Every sound feels older, every motion slower, as though the planet itself is breathing in its sleep. Here, life endures in quiet defiance. The ice remembers, the oceans listen, and the sky holds a million secrets still unspoken. And as the last flicker of polar light fades from your thoughts, all that remains is calm, the kind that reaches deep and stays. So breathe, and let your mind drift. Let the cold edges of the world cradle you in peace. Vast, ancient, and beautifully still. Good night.